pledge allegiance to the regular city council meeting March 13th.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. We have a few people out. Lynn emailed everybody. I think she's out. Bob's got the flu. Lisa's out on schedule. And Judy's filling in. Approval of the minutes, February 27th, 2013. We have one first, and then the special meeting March 3rd, 2017. Perfect.
Thank you. On the very first page, during approval of the minutes, the very last word of my comment should be out of order, not out of line. Thank you.
Yes, on page 3, this would be the second paragraph, starting with Carl Richards. The last sentence to be added. Kurzweil further noted that Waddell was out of order when he addressed Carl Richards at the public comment section of the agenda. I have another correction. That would be on page, sorry for these pages. It is dealing with CM 2-5-17. That would be the motion to suspend the rules to have a conversation with the public speaker. And then it says motion by Kurzweil, supported by Reese. Vote motion carried unanimously. At the beginning of that paragraph, Kurzweil noted that Waddell was out of place when he spoke directly to a public speaker without first making a motion to suspend the rules. And last, page 8, there it is. Clarification, please. I don't know, Judy, if you would be able to do it. The question is I just want to make sure that the notes were properly transcribed, where it says Mayor Galis called for a 5-minute recess. I want to make sure that there was no motion to recess. Is that correct?
I can check the tape.
Okay, I just want to make sure that there was no motion to recess. Thank you. Thank you.
John, I've got a couple. The end of page 3, this is the paragraph concerning Dan Pelchett. About halfway through there, it says, the sentence starts uncalled for and stems from, it says ulterior, but it was actually alternative facts. It was sort of a play off of the Conway comment. And on page 5, if I'm not mistaken, the top of the page, the motion carried unanimously was actually Harvey's friendly amendment. Isn't that your recollection, Harvey?
Yeah, but
I don't see where it was noted anyplace else, so.
they were just in two different slots, at the bottom of page 4 and then at the top of page 5. I don't think it's a substantial problem. I saw it, same thing.
Let's see, and there was one more I'd just seen on, and actually on, no, that's all right. That's all I had, thanks.
I'll move as amended.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Special meeting March 3rd, 2017.
I'll move the minutes for the.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approval of the bills.
I just had a question, and Lynn, I hope you're feeling better, but I'm going to sort of talk like you're here because I know you're eventually going to watch the video, because I know you are that dedicated of an employee. My question is with the bill that was paid by Dyke Gossett, the amount, well, it's open. It's $2,371.20. I just want to get clarification on whether, if that is a final bill for all the incredible services we received from Dyke Gossett on the conflict of interest issue, or if that is just his first bill. That was my question on that. And the other question is sort of a technical issue, and I don't know whether to bring it up here on the bills or to bring it up later on, and it's regarding the payment of sidewalks by the residents. This is on the revenue financial statement, and the reason I'm bringing this up is that we show an original budget of $20,000 for the sidewalks, and I don't see, it says available balance is $20,000. I was confused with seeing the available balance of $20,000 because I thought at our budget meeting, not our budget meeting, but the special meeting we had, that the $20,000 was already used up. So maybe it is used up and I'm just not understanding the notation here. Additionally, it was my understanding that individuals in the community were paying for half of the cost to have the sidewalks repaired. So if that's the case, then where is the revenue showing up on the revenue statement for those homes that kicked in to have their sidewalk replaced? So I don't see that here, and I don't know if that's an accounting issue where the city is putting that in more as a cost of services provided, and so therefore it would be documented differently, or whether we are going to look at the homeowner money that we received for that as a source of revenue. So that is more of an accounting issue. I just wanted to bring that up, Lynn. We can get to it in 2 weeks. This is not an emergency, but I just wanted some clarification as to how we're documenting that. Thank you.
Harvey?
If you look at the revenues page, 1, 2, 3, 5 from the bottom, payment of sidewalk by residents. 20,000, 20,000.
Then why does it have an available balance?
If it was all used up, there is no available balance. It was budgeted at 20,000. 20,000 was used.
No,
Doesn't that answer your question?
no, it doesn't.
Okay.
No. I talked to Plant Moran about it today, so.
Yeah, I'm curious as well, and I'd like to see Lynn maybe give some background as to some details of how many sidewalks are being fixed. I mean, this is something we were pretty all set on as having this done. So I just want to know maybe a list of how many sidewalks were done and what houses, so we can have some real accounting on it. So Lynn, as was mentioned, I'm sure she'll watch this tape and can get back to us on that.
Good question. I'd like to know how many people used it, took advantage of it.
Good question to ask actually over the telephone. rather than
No, this
doing
is
it
a
at
No,
good place.
no, this is the place for it.
Perfect place.
Anyone else?
I do, if I may. So it should come as no surprise that I have been critical of our attorney invoices. I've been, for the past years, a project I've been working on, trying to reduce those costs. And it seems like my big concern is that we don't have any checks and balances over how many hours are being billed and any mechanism in place to reduce those hours. So with that being said, a couple meetings ago, I was kind of taken back when I heard that several conversations regarding the conflict of interest regarding Councilmember Kibble between our city attorney and our city council members were not going to be included on the invoices. And Tim, you said you were not going to adjust your invoices to include those conversations. I was kind of taken back by that. So With that being said, and in addition to the bills and the amount of hours that we have without something in place to control those hours, I'm really uneasy with our city attorney invoices. And from now on out, I'm not going to be approving our invoices from the Johnson Rosati law firm until I can get that reassurance that we're getting a fair deal. So I'm going to be voting no on the bills. Thank you.
I don't know if, Tim, if you have any insight in this. This would obviously have been both Bob and Lynn's typical question, but the Brico, the final payment on Brico, everybody is signed off on that, HRC and everybody?
Saw it, I don't have any frame
Okay.
of reference on what that charge is.
Okay. That's actually all I had. Thanks. Well, I move the bills.
I'll second.
second.
Oh, go ahead, Harvey.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Approval of the agenda.
I'll move the agenda.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Public comment. Anyone have a wish to say something, come up to the mic, state your name, where you live.
Good evening, Council. Ryan Lair, 716 Grand Court. Tonight, I have been here for 16 years as a resident, and tonight it brings me no pleasure at all to come to this microphone, but I feel, as justice for the residents, I feel I must. This is regarding the attorney that divulged the information regarding the conflict of interest regarding Councilmember Kibble. Highlights. You are sworn in as a public official to uphold the law. You clearly did not do that. The attorney already said that. You are not above the law. All of council voted for the investigation by outside counsel. You stated on the record that you welcomed those facts. However, you stated on social media and at council that, again, you felt it was not a big deal. 7 misdemeanors, which include city charter and city code, as well as violation of state law. You are not above the law. You need to resign your seat effective immediately at the end of the meeting tonight. You have stated on social media that you want your apology to be accepted. The only way it will be accepted is to resign and show the city, your friends, and the citizens you are truly sorry for your actions. You take responsibility for you not abstaining for voting. Show the high school children that come here to these meetings that you set an example for them. You show what's right and what's wrong. You know you were wrong. Everybody knows up here knows you were wrong. It has to take the guts to admit it. The investigator found out you had a financial interest. You did not want to lose your job at Pullum Windows. So you voted for the contract knowing that you were safeguarding your job. There are millions of people that do not want to lose their job. They don't want to get a pink slip. They don't want to be laid off. What makes you so special? What about all the other people that are laid off that are trying to feed their families? Kibble, for the sake of our city, you need to resign. As for the council members that voted to protect you, they can be charged with obstructing justice because you would not allow a criminal investigation to be investigated. There was a crime, and it was indicated by a very well-respected attorney. You had an obligation to uphold the facts that were presented. 3 council members, Joe Rizzi, Maggie Kurzweil, and Mike Kramer, voted to have the law enforcement investigation. The 3 members that voted no were Mayor John Galius, Mary Parisian, and Harvey Waddell. I'd also like to thank Mike Kramer for, even though he is friends with certain members on council, he agreed that a law enforcement investigation. He showed his children and the public that right is and wrong is being looked at. As far as restitution, I feel you should owe the entire bill of the city investigation. The taxpayers should not have to pay for your investigation. You clearly broke the law. And I would also add that I feel that there should be a restitution amount decided by council for each building that you voted on. So if there were 3 buildings, there needs to be an equal amount for each building, and you need to pay that. If you really care about this city, you'll leave that seat tonight. Ball's in your court. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Carl Richards, 390 Lennox. I know we've all been through quite an ordeal the last week or so in our community. There's a lot of little details I could speak to also, but I don't plan to go there. But I would like to say on a positive note, we've had a very minor amount of damage at the historic village. One of our biggest trees blew over, and it's not going to be fixable. And there's been a little bit more, but not terribly serious damage at McCaddy Park. And I believe it'll get by. There's a number of trees that were damaged, but only 3 major ones that went down in the last storm we've had, okay? Other damage around town is, monumental, okay? Excuse me. Unprecedented. I'd never seen anything like it, what went on down at the corner of Lake and McMahon. Anyway, I hope we all look for the future and things are going to brighten up. This is only 1 week left before spring gets here, and I'll guarantee you the sap is running in all of our maple trees up at the north end of town and east end of town. And I think we can all be happy about a lot of things that are going to be going on this year. Anyway, thank you very much.
Good evening. John Hogan, 987 Oak Creek Drive. I must admit that I've been watching city council meetings the last few months out of morbid curiosity more than anything else. However, the meeting last on February 27th was really just too much. 2 council members, without presenting any facts, basically accused the city and its employees of purposely sending out fraudulent water bills and participating in a cover-up. I won't use the council members' names, but instead would ask that the residents of South Lyon go back and watch the video and look at the meeting minutes for any actual facts presented to support their statements. As a long-term resident of the city, I believe that the statements made by Mr. Martin, more than 2 council members, that appeared to have been disingenuous and very loose with the interpretation of the facts. My recollection is that neither council member contacted any member of the city employees to inquire about water bills in question, nor how an estimated water bill was generated. Lost my place, sorry. What I did here was council members reviewed old recordings of past city council meetings for information, and another one posted a comment or a question on Facebook and relying on that to generate their opinion. No actual facts, findings of what happened, or asking specific questions of city employees. Just videos and Facebook. I'd like to highlight 2 exchanges between Mr. Martin and his 2 council members to demonstrate how ridiculous their claims are. One council member stated someone has to physically manipulate the inflated water bills. My question is, how do you know that? You didn't ask any questions of Mr. Martin or anybody at the city. You didn't ask how a water bill was generated. So how do you know that? Well, you posted a question on Facebook to get the answer. And of course, we know if you want facts, you go to Facebook. My son will be so disappointed, he tells me to ask Google. The second exchange was when Mr. Martin presented a detailed summary of how water meter readings are taken. And what happens when they're not able to get a reading. When presented with the facts by the employee that has close to 38 years with the city, the statement was, I don't trust you. I don't trust you. I believe the woman who talked to city council 2 years ago. What a slap in the face to an individual and department that has given so much to this community. First, you didn't even give the respect of a courtesy call to find out any of these, of the information. And second, to slander not only Mr. Martin, but the employee that does the billing is a disgrace to the city and the position of council. For additional proof of unproven statements that may have been made, let's look at what was said about the no video being posted for the meeting of January 23rd. Members of City Council and other people shouted a cover-up until an individual came forward to state the facts that cover-up being claimed was really just equipment that sometimes break down, i.e. technical issues. He felt it necessary to do so because of all the false statements that were being made, not to mention the negative impact it was having on the city employees. How sad when someone feels they must come forward to state the facts that could have easily been provided if anyone had bothered to ask. Even sadder, no apology was given to the employees once the truth was revealed. Now, how do things get this far off the rails? Well, it starts with you, the City Council, making statements as if there could be no other possible solutions without attempting to talk with the individuals that have the facts, but instead go out onto social media. I have lost track to the number of times this has happened. Another fact that two council members failed to mention is the city is audited on a regular basis, and that if any discrepancies in water billing would have been uncovered by this independent agency. Or is that agency a part of the cover-up too? Or perhaps they just didn't answer their Facebook question. My observation is two council members have no intention of working with the other members of council or city officials to move the city forward. So I won't even ask that they try. All you have to do is listen to the hot mic moment of the last meeting or the meeting itself to hear how they will bully, bloviate the conversation to ensure nothing can get accomplished. They are more interested in making grandstand speeches and headlines for the paper than they are moving the city forward. I would ask the residents of South Lyon to ask themselves, who does this help? Let's say I'm a business owner and I'm thinking of opening a restaurant in South Lyon or another city. What city council would I want to go before to ask about a liquor license? Not this one. To Mr. Martin and your entire team at DPW and the other city employees that have been portrayed in an unfair manner, I want to thank you for your dedication to the city. Mr. Martin, you and your guys are the best. I can see your passion for the city every time you speak. The people you work with, I think, feed off of your positive outlook, and it helps make South Lyon what it is today. A highly desired place to raise your family, where the streets are clear of snow, and we have the best drinking water around. To the other members of City Council, I'm sorry you have to endure working with individuals that cannot be reasoned with. I only hope that you will not give up and continue to move things forward. And in the future, I hope that the city employees of South Lyon are treated with the respect they deserve, both by City Council members and the residents of South Lyon. You don't need to post a question on Facebook to know that that's only common courtesy. And by the way, they're still waiting for an apology. Thank you.
Well said.
Okay. Old business. Before we get started on this, Corey Bala came in, who's with Superior Renewable Solutions. You have an old copy of says South Lyon Wastewater Treatment Plant Executive Summary. You need to replace it with the one that was given to us before the meeting. presentation of the updated revised information regarding renewable energy installation at the wastewater treatment plant.
All right. How we doing?
Perfect.
Good, good. So, as John said, Corey Bala, Superior Renewable Solutions, was here a month ago, talked about potentially doing a solar project over at the water treatment facility. You know, it's interesting that there's criticism of the of the water facility. Let's keep this two separate issues. we chose the water treatment facility because there's land available to do a solar project. So I hope everybody recognizes it has nothing to do with billing or anything like that. Per your request, and justifiably so, you wanted some more information before you want to take a deeper dive into it. So we dug some numbers up, and I do apologize. We did find a calculations error on the sheet that you have. I talked to Lynn today, and she was sick, so I couldn't get it to you via email earlier today. So here's the paper copy. But you know, all in all, I mean, I think we can all agree that renewable energy is a nice thing. It just, you know, is the question, can the city afford it, and is it something that makes sense, you know, financially? So to take a look at it, with the new numbers that we're looking at putting up a system that'll cost initially $685,000. But with our financing programs, I think we're under a 5-year return on investment, and I think by year 5, we're back in the positive. We're only looking at a few grand up front, paying more monthly before we're back in the positive on that. And all in all, over the course of 25 years that the panels are warranted, we're looking at saving the city approximately $761,000. So, and like I said before, I'd like to remind you that that's the first 25 years. Now, the first solar panels were created back in the 50s. They're still producing energy. So after the 25 years, you know, who knows what's going to happen? Maybe we'll get another 25 years out of them. So you can, you know, do the potential math in your head. Potentially millions of dollars we can save the city by being proactive and, you know, throwing some solar panels out there. Obviously, if you look at page 2 of the sheet that I gave you, I mean, we don't have to talk about why solar is good. You know, carbon emissions, it's good for the environment. It's an educational tool for our schools. It's an opportunity for the city to show you that you care about the city, about the residents. Page 3 is that estimated term sheet that as I mentioned, is corrected now. If you're looking at the grid energy section, the cost of the, you know what, I'm sorry, I'm going to back up. We're looking at putting up a 327 kilowatt system, if I hadn't mentioned that yet. Potentially that will replace 22% of your bill. Now, again, these are preliminary numbers without doing a deeper dive, without taking soil testing, things like that. Maybe we can do more, maybe we can do less. I know there's an area, if Bob, if the city wants to clear out some trees, there might be room for some more. We can bump that number up for even more savings. But so based on what we're talking about here, that 22% would the AC grid energy would cost us over $1.685 million, which with the solar project would be down to $924,000. These are our estimations based on, you know, grid inflation and whatnot. And then finally, if you look at the last section, that's actually a printout from our installer that we're using on this project. Potentially is Midwest Wind and Solar. And you can see on the last page, that's the area we're actually looking at putting the panels. And there's all kinds of technical stuff on here that maybe one of you can explain to me. I don't get it. So I guess we're here to take a deeper look and see if this makes sense to move forward.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Gary?
Are there grants available? Do you happen to know off the top of your head? I would ask Lynn, but she's not here. Do you know off the top of your head if other communities or states have offered their communities grants to install solar panels?
Owner of the company, Chris Yurko.
There are no grants per se. The way the financial structure here on the third page is done, it's done through a lease purchase agreement and energy savings agreement, so that the 30% federal investment tax credit, the majority of that can be passed along. So this is the only financial structure that allowed you to benefit from the 30% credit, which comes from the federal government. So no grants, but there are federal credits that you can benefit from in this financial structure.
Okay. Because I was doing some research, and I read an article that the state of Michigan is actually pushing for communities to go green and use renewable energy, and they gave a list of options. They also said a snippet in there about offering grants, and I figured we actually have a system here where we can plug in precisely what we're looking for and see if there are any grants available, because if there are, I mean, why not utilize them through the state of Michigan? I know federally there's just the credit, but I think that would be something to look into just cost-wise for us to save us money. The other thing I wanted to say is, along with the research that I've been doing, Ann Arbor, Grand Rapids, and Lansing have all taken steps to go green. And granted, their logistics are much different than ours. They're much larger communities. I think this is the way of the future. I think it's an attractive option for South Lyon, to be quite honest. I know it's a little bit upfront, but the savings all in all is still a savings.
Sure. Thank you for that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but to take advantage of the grants, you'd probably have to purchase it outright, correct? Or not? Do you know?
Typically, the grants would go to the owner of the system, correct?
Okay.
Right. So it's probably certainly worth looking into on your end, but the
And
downside
I
would
can
be
touch
you'd have to
base.
come up with 600, whatever it was, 700 grand up front, whatever.
Okay.
I have been in conversations with Representative Hoadley from Kalamazoo, who's on the Energy Committee for the state. And so I'll check with him, also see what other grants are available. But as Corey said, typically the grants that we're familiar with are like renewable energy grants through the USDA and others, which typically have not been available to municipalities. But you're right, it doesn't mean that there's not something coming down the pike, and it's certainly something to investigate.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So I have 3 points I want to touch upon. The first one is actually a question just regarding these numbers here. So as I recall, Bob said that we spend $200,000 a year or $210,000 on energy. Is that what I remember that?
That rings a bell. I don't.
Okay, I think it
have
was
in front of me.
210. I don't remember exactly. It wasn't. I didn't see in the minutes. So my question is, on your executive summary, you talk about saving 20% reduction. No, excuse me. Expected to reduce your electric use by 22%. So my question is that cost? Because I'm scratching my head. These numbers don't add up. If it's a 5-year return on investment, and it's going to cost us $685,000, how 22% of $200,000 is not going to be $685,000. So how does that exactly add up, those numbers?
Sure. Well, first, the 200,000 number is I believe accurate, because if we're talking about saving, if you look at year one in grid inflation, 40,000 and change, that's 22% of the overall number. That puts us at around 200,000. As to how the ROI number was calculated, I think that was a simple ROI based on total cost of project, less the credits, less the depreciation credits that are being provided by an investor group that will be doing the structured finance. So I don't have the actual breakdown of that number to show you where but that's generally how that's done. In this example of the energy service agreement and LPA, if you see, we show what the grid inflation is based on just what's the cost of what's saved based on that 22% with a inflation factor, and what is the annual lease payment or energy service payment, and just to show that this project would only come out of pocket or be in the red, if you will, for the first 3 years, although the ROI is 5. So in essence, we're looking at about $11,000, simple math here, of what would be spent on the front end in order to achieve almost $750,000 over the course of 25 years. But you're right, as to the actual breakdown of the ROI number, I would have to get that to you.
But we'd still have to take out essentially a loan through a third party for the $685,000, correct?
Correct. That's
Okay,
correct.
so we would be in the hole $685,000. That's where you're losing me, because let's call it 20% on $200,000. That's $40,000. So in 5 years, if we're saving $40,000, that's not anywhere close to $685,000. We'd still have to put it on the front end. So I'm not really understanding that.
No, and
math
also,
there.
it's actually technically not a loan either. It's a energy service agreement and lease purchase agreement, so it does not show in your books as a.
Well, we would still be obligated for 25 years and still have this on our plate.
Well, it'd be a 20-year contract.
20 year,
which-
okay.
Right. And again, at this point, we're not presenting the actual contract. We're showing the estimate of based on our preliminary development design, what we expect to come. And the idea here is to show you the proposal, get permission to take a deeper dive. At that point, you would have the actual contract, the actual production guarantee, and the actual breakdowns of those numbers.
Right, and that's where I'm not really seeing where there is any reduction for 5 years. Maybe it's me, but in this, what we're presented is not really clear how that is. Because like I said, 685 up front, savings, I don't know, something's fuzzy here. But my next question is actually more of a comment, and that's regarding it. I mean, I understand, I'm realistic when it comes to this whole green energy and renewable, and everybody's trying, and communities want to have a good face, good front. But I did want to point out that really, if we were to go forward with this, this wouldn't be that much of protecting the environment. I mean, what I mean by that is we're shown that it would be 9,000, just over 9,000 tons of CO2 saved. I did some research according to the Department of Aviation, and an average jet 700 series is going 53.3 pounds of CO2. So one flight from New York to Los Angeles, that generates a total of 65 tons of CO2. So over 25 years, if we were to implement this, really we're just negating, getting rid of 141 flights from New York to Los Angeles. So what I mean by that is you have thousands of flights going on every day. So over 25 years, we're basically just eliminating two or three flights a day. I mean, that's peanuts. It's nothing.
Could you agree that a little bit of savings of carbon emission is a positive thing?
Nah, sometimes I think it's the symbolism over the actual substance, and the substance isn't really there. It's,
Okay.
so.
All right, well, if we stick to a few $1,000s up front to cover our soft costs, and if it is 11,000 or whatever it is, call it 12 for the sake. If it costs you $15,000 to save 760, whatever, $750,000 over years, is it worth doing?
Well, and still, I don't think those numbers are really clear. I mean, maybe it's just me and my math, but it's not really presented clear.
Sure, and if we were to move forward, and if you were to decide to do this as a council, obviously in the contract, there would be numbers that would make sense. I mean, it'd be a contract. We'd be held to it legally. So
Yeah.
these are just preliminary numbers.
And that's kind of my third point, and then I'll be brief, and that's my last point is, Corey, I like you as a person. I think you're great. The hotel, I'm glad to see it come back. I think all of us on council, I mean, if there's one thing we can all agree on is that we all like you.
Well, just give me money for that.
And, and with that being said, that's kind of my point is that unfortunately, since we're so close to you, we've had a lot of conflicts of interest lately, and I think that's a conflict in itself. So if we're going to move forward, I really think we need to get other bids. I mean, you're not the only company that has.
I'm not telling you that's a bad idea. Sure.
So before I say that my personal opinion is before I can give my blessing to say, let's move forward on this, I really think Lynn or whoever's driving this needs to get a full package together without costing anything. I mean, like I said from last meeting, it shouldn't cost anything to get a proposal out. And if she wants to bring it before us, that's fine, but, I really see a conflict here, so. And nothing personal, it's just.
No, fair enough. Sure, I'm not going to disagree with you other than let me say that, again, this is preliminary numbers based on something that we haven't done a deep dive. So to do that, we need a couple dollars up front. So if you really want to compare apples to apples, that's what we would need. And the second point would be our company is very unique in that we're offering the structure behind the whole deal. You can certainly go get quotes from other solar companies, and with those companies, you're most likely going to have to come up with the money and, maybe apply for the grant. Maybe that's a good way to go. But, I guess I'd like to say I'm confident that with our financing structure, it's pretty unique. So I think I encourage Lynn to look into it, but I think you'll have a hard time finding a company doing what we do. So.
To do our due diligence, we'll have to do that irrespective of whether or not we don't anticipate seeing a better competitive bid. we're going to end up, if we move forward with this, it will be a competitive circumstance. So, I mean, it's just going to be the nature of the beast. The idea of, I like the idea of saving the ozone and all that as much as anybody, I guess, but the
Not
dollars
Joe.
are really what boil down to what matters here. I mean, if we can end up making a dent in overall costs, I guess my biggest concern is technology being what it is. I would hate to find out 2 years into this that all of a sudden Elon Musk has just decided his new technology will have energy free forever for the rest of time, and we just made
Sure,
this
we can hope for
investment.
that.
So as long as there's a clause in the contract we can cancel if Musk does that, then I won't have any qualms with this. No, but I like the idea, and I like the notion of your pitch, and like I said, it'll end up having to be competing with other people's, their version of this same kind of a project that was in my view. So I did wonder, though, had you guys and Bob, had you talked about some of these arrays that are out beyond the fence line? Obviously, there's going to be some costs that we'll have to incur to secure that area, so.
That's a preliminary question I can't answer right now. My guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that I'm sure we can find a way to work with the installer to fence that in. I mean, here's the thing, with this, with it being financed through a third party, they're going to have the maintenance on it. It's their money, so they're going to insure it, they're going to maintain it, and I'm sure that they're going to want to put a fence around it to protect it. So that will be addressed, obviously, at some point.
I didn't know if you guys had had a conversation about that at all, that's all.
We haven't, but
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I wasn't here at the last meeting. What I can say is, when I went to school a long time ago, they said we'd all be doing solar energy and probably flying cars by now in the year 2000, and we're quite farther into 2000, and that's not happening as much as we'd like. It takes a pretty unique group of people or businesses or cities or municipalities to want to be out in front of this. There is a risk involved in it. Being when I was going to school for it, not for solar energy, but for my degree, and now I've been 25 years, been working in the industry. The auto industry has started to do green technology in a lot of their plants. It takes a pretty unique company to want to spend that money and expenditure to get what comes out of it. And it's not all about saving the ozone, but there's argument about even that. But it's, I believe there's always been a little bit here, a little bit there is going to, if you take a little bit off the grid, and it's saving people money in the long term, that's all going to help everybody, and if you're going to save money, even if it's a little bit of money, but the numbers need to be a little better, I think. But if we're going to be saving money, I don't see a problem with trying to do something out front. The city here, years ago, built this building, and we kind of made it on CNN for 5 minutes, I think, back then, because we had our 5 minutes of fame, because they said, wow, the cities and school boards don't normally get along here. This is really unique. And we thought, really? And we won an award for the building, and we got a pretty nice center set up, and we got school on one side, city on the other. Our relations are better. They're still not great, but they're better. But we did something kind of unique and out in front, and this isn't for the contract, what you're talking about right now. This is talking about going forward with the soft costs.
So what we put out forward is a letter of intent that would allow us to do a deeper dive, pay our engineers to do some testing, whatnot, get some more measurements and all the technical things that they do. Soft costs that we're asking for are $3,000, and that will allow us to move forward to see if it makes sense to put a contract in front of you at some point in the future. Our preliminary numbers are suggesting $3,000 up front. What did Chris say? $11,000 over the course of a few years, and $750,000 in savings. That's what our numbers are suggesting based on what we know. So I guess to summarize, we're asking, for a vote or an opinion or whatever it takes to move forward to see if this makes sense for the city. And with that, it'll cost basically $3,000.
I'm all for green energy. I've got strong connections in the state of Wisconsin where wind-generated mills are operating. And I think I said this before, and I'll say it again. I'm not opposed to this technology. I'm opposed to the timing. It's the timing of bringing this into the city. And I think I have some really good reasons. And to the best of my knowledge, the Sewer and Water Department has been operating at a loss for years. They're still operating at a loss. You know,
I'm helping you with this.
well, that's not the resolution, quite frankly. There's other structural issues that need to be taken care of. And I really don't want to incur any more long-term debt with the Sewer and Water Department. There is a sewer bond out there. We still have 9 more years. The payment is running about $380,000 a year. That has to be paid off. And now you want to stream another 20-year payment to that department. And I'm just telling you, I understand the argument. I'm saying at this time in the city's financial history, in the city's financial budget, I have not seen evidence that the budgeting process or the finances are strong enough to absorb another long-term debt program. That's what this is.
I certainly appreciate that, and I'm not arguing with you a bit. As I mentioned before, the water facility was chosen because that's where the biggest bills are for the city. I would love to put panels all over Victory Park if we could. I mean, but this is the biggest spend for the city, so this is what we addressed first. I'm trying to keep it as a separate.
Okay, but that sewer and water department needs to get rates under control so that they are covering their operating expenses. This is part of the problem. So,
I'm not going to argue with you on that. Sure.
Okay, well, that's a problem. That's a structural problem with the budget. It is getting solved year by year, but until that department operates at a break even, I'm not even asking that they operate in the black. They have got to get out of the hole. And that has to be handled. That is a structural problem that this council has with budgeting.
How can the Southland Hotel help you with that?
Pardon? Well, okay. The next is that additionally with that problem is that we have a general fund that has lost $2.4 million in the last 3 or 4 years. This general fund used to be at $5 million. And there's been no accountability to me at why, I don't know, but.
I don't have it.
Okay. You know, where that money is. I'm sure it's gone to pay expenses, but there is a sieve operating in this budget. And I am going to advocate for some things that I think we need to do, but I also have to be conservative and think about this budget issue, because I am really going to try to find out where this sieve is, because the hole in the dike has to be healed. I mean, somebody's got to stick that finger in the dike. And again, if this is a long-term commitment, and I don't think that this council has the budget quite yet under control to make a 20-year commitment, I don't care how much money it saves. There are some more important issues that I think need to come forward. The third one is I've had an opportunity to speak with many taxpayers in the city. And I laid out the option. And you kind of have to listen to the people that are paying the bills. I mean, the taxpayers pay the salaries of the people in here. The taxpayers pay a lot of bills. And
They like $750,000 given back to their community.
No, here's where their priority is. I'm just telling you, their priority, taxpayer priority is they want the downtown fixed. They are so sick of that downtown being the way it is. They want the downtown fixed. The screaming is deafening. They want the down, and we're moving there. We're getting there. They want roads fixed. They want volunteer park taken care of. Those are the 3 main issues that if you went out and talked to taxpayers, that's what they want. Let me tell you, solar panels over for the sewer and water department, It's not even on their radar. It's not even on their radar. So it's tough for me to support a program that the average taxpayer is looking at and saying, why are we getting solar panels and spending a 20-year obligation, even though we're going to be saving money, when taxpayers tend to have a little bit more of a short-run use of their tax dollar. I mean, these people, these seniors, they want a downtown that's fixed up so they can bring their in-laws and their granddaughters and grandchildren down for a shopping day and go to the hotel and enjoy a nice dinner. These grandparents want to take their kids to a park that's developed, volunteer park. We don't get that developed soon, we're going to lose the game. So I'm just letting you know, I know you, when the hotel opens, I'll be there, but, I support this, but to me, it's not fiscally responsible at this time. I can't support it in any
Sure.
form.
I'm not trying to change your mind, and I agree with everything that you just said. I would love to fix all of those things. And I'd like to add, if we were to get it out there to the public that we found a way to spend a little bit of money to save a lot long-term to use some of this money for these projects, I'll bet they'd be on board with it.
The thing I just wanted to make clear is, if this proposal were to go forward, you would not be asked to come up with some sort of capital outlay. We're not talking about come up with $685,000. We're not talking come up with $100,000. We're talking about $3,000 to do design and engineering, which would then be yours, which could then be used for an RFP process further on. And if you move forward, the way this is structured, the way I would look at it is for 22% of your water electricity bill, which continues to rise, you're essentially locking your rate. You're locking your rate for the next 25 to 40 years at the way it's structured with the lease payment as opposed to what you'd have to pay out to your utility. So the question then would be, would taxpayers understand if you could sit there and go to your electric utility and say, don't give me a raise for a increase in my rate for the next 25 years, isn't that a good deal? So that's just 2 points. Not looking for a large capital outlay, and it's a way to cap what you're spending, unfortunately only on 22% because we're limited based on what the legislature says and based on space. And that's why this saves significant money over the long term. But we're not looking for large capital money up front.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, here's the comment that was made to me when I went out and sort of surveyed the taxpayers. If you got that kind of money to make a lease payment for the next 20 years, why don't you pay down on the sewer bond? Why don't you just take that money and pay the sewer bond off early? I'm just letting you know, this is coming from a taxpayer. And I will tell you that I have found a community that is using solar panels, and to give you the fairness, because I think I'm pretty objective about this stuff, I'm going to travel down, take a look at their system, and ask a lot of questions.
And my last statement of that would be, we're not asking for that additional $46,000 of lease payment. What we're asking is just a redirection for money already being paid to the utility to be spent towards paying this service contract. So it's not new money. It's just a redirection of utility money to pay for a solar system, solar array for the city that's your own.
That was my question, because, I mean, if you look at the savings, assuming that we have a $200,000 electric bill for the wastewater treatment plant, 22%, it's at $44,000 in savings. So essentially what you're doing is you're taking that savings, and then on top of that, you have to pay your lease. So in essence, we'd be paying more than the savings we're getting from, not much more, but like $2,000 more. If you're assuming it's a $200,000 bill each year. So that's my question number one. So it sounds like you're right. You're redirecting money from the utility to your company, and then even with that savings, you're still, if it's 200, it could be more. And that was my original question that I had for Bob. I wanted to see the savings from the city side point of view. I mean, this is great, and I like the pitch, but I need to see some numbers from the city.
Sure.
As far as what our annual bill is for electricity, what we think the savings would be, and more importantly, how the heck are we going to pay for it? Because, I want to make sure that if we do this, it makes sense, we're not losing money, Because I remember the whole thing with the LED lights with DTE, when we switched the street lights over. Yeah, we got the savings, we got a grant, but then they raised the rates. So it was a situation, how much money are you really saving by going green when the utility realizes, hey, you're using less electricity, so we're just gonna raise the rates. And that's my concern. I don't want to be in a position where it sounds good up front, but towards the middle of the lease, you're sitting there going, what did we just do? Are we really saving money? So that's why I need to look at this from the city side to see the numbers, compare them to what you have, and see if it's actually in the best, interest of the city. And I like the pitch. I just need more numbers.
I was just gonna say, no, the way you're looking at it, I think is absolutely accurate. The first 3 years, the payment to the lease, based on across the savings, that's where I came up to the $11,000 difference in 3 years. After that, your savings is greater than the lease payment, and it adds up. I clearly understand what you said. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Now, it's going to seem like I'm really nitpicking, but my background's purchasing, and I send out requests for quotes, RFPs, whatever you want to call them, daily, sometimes 10, 12 a day. And maybe it's different in the private sector, but I kind of hold some of the same standards when it comes to governing here. And not once do I ever ask for, do my suppliers ask for money from me in order for me to give them potential business. So I'm not trying to get hung up on $3,000, but I'm just telling you right now, I'm not going to vote for anything if we have to pay a fee up front, even if it's $1. I mean, again, I know it's peanuts, but still, if you have potential for getting a huge contract where we're tied to you for 20 years or however many years, I'm not paying $3,000. You guys got to eat that cost, either way.
Fair enough. It costs us money to do it up front. That's why we ask.
One thing to say to that, I get what you're saying there, Joe, but your answer earlier to that would have been my question. We own that engineering that's being done at that point in time, and then going back.
Quoted out at that
Councilman
point.
Kibble said that's when we can go out and do our due diligence. We have to bid this thing out to other companies if it proves that it's going to be beneficial for the city to save what the potential is when the numbers are really there, the hard numbers. Maggie's comment about the hard numbers, Mike's comment about can we pay for it. But again, what Maggie says is, in the way she's handling it, is exactly right. This is what the opposition has always been on solar power, or trying to go in a different direction that a lot of people don't go. And part of the reason why solar hasn't taken off like it could, and some of the other industries haven't done as well as they can, there's always a very, very solid argument on the other side, and it gets kind of stonewalled, between the two sides. Sure. And Elon Musk, I work with this guy all the time, not personally, but we're doing work for Tesla, and his mind works ways that none of us have any idea how it does. But he does have an energy thing all set up for the houses, and if that thing goes, we don't know what's going to happen. But to me, it's a small expense. I'm not trying to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't do. It's a small expense for us to find out. It's our due diligence, kind of, for better words, that we're not going to be signing any big contract that says we're going to do this work. We're going to find out whether or not it's feasible for us to go potentially with you guys, or to bid this out, or just not.
That's
and
exactly
until that
what
point
we're
in
going
time, we're never going to have that answer. So it does take a little bit of a risk on our part, I think, but we, to decide whether or not we want to go green, and do we want to have the potential to save the taxpayers quite a bit of money? Are those numbers correct? I don't know. What it looks like off the surface, what Mike is saying, the numbers are a little different. I don't quite understand all of it, but I kind of like the idea of being able to at least get an idea. We're digging in the hole. We're going to find out whether or not this would work for the city of South Lyon. And the potential to save the people some money would be great. The ozone stuff is a whole other question. There's a lot of people who jump on board just for that. They wouldn't care what you spent. And that's my take on it. And one more thing. I want to answer Joe's question a little bit, and it's not an argument to you. We're kind of a small town, and we know a lot of people in this town, and we know Corey very well. I know Corey very well. He is a good friend of mine. I do not, he'll tell you firsthand, I do not let business and friendships get in the way of my decisions, and normally I go the other direction when people push me. So I think it's good that we have people on this council that know the business owners in town and some of the people who we can trust and who we believe has the best interest, especially when someone's making a big commitment like he is right now to put the hotel back.
Yeah, I'm
I mean, that's
kind of
just-
putting my neck on the line, by the way.
And that's just my
I don't want anything to go
take on
poorly.
it from a business side. And really like this proposal, whether it was from you or somebody else. I wasn't here the last time to hear it, but this was in my training growing up through the years, and I've been doing this in the auto industry a lot through the years, and there's been a big fight and argument within that entire group of people, engineers, scientists, and everybody. Is it working? Is it not? Is it feasible? Why are we doing it? It becomes a huge marketing tool for one, and a lot of people don't understand that, but it is. And when it does start to pay it back and save, you get people asking the questions, why didn't you do this, before? And it was like, well, we have the argument that we didn't see the numbers, we didn't see, and it's a very solid argument. And that's why it's been kind of it's been a hard sell. So I like the presentation. That's my take. Anyone else? Harvey?
Thank you. This wasn't on our priority radar until you folks brought it to us. So you're kind of jumping in line here on something, on other priorities. But that being said, the only other point I want to make is that if we go to a project of this size, we're going to have to do it through an RFP. And if we seed your research for you to put together the basis for an RFP, that's going to be a big leg up for your firm. So I would think that each firm would have to do their own research based on what their proposal would be and their response to our request for proposals. That's all I had. Thank you.
John? Oh, you were first? Sorry.
Maggie?
I just want to add an additional comment, and this is why I'm questioning the long-term profitability of this, is when I was working on my graduate degree in economics, we spent time looking at the utility models, for electricity and water. And one thing that you're dealing with are monopolies. And so a monopoly can charge just about any price they want. And I think was sort of hinted tonight by Councilman Kramer, is that when utilities see their usage go down, they still need to cover their costs. The cost of other labor isn't changing. It's not going down. It's going up. The cost of their benefits isn't going down. It's going up. The cost of the real estate taxes for the buildings and the facilities in which they operate isn't going down, it's going up. So the only way a utility has to generate more income when they have declining demand is to increase price. So I am not convinced that the long-term business model is going to provide a benefit to the residents of the city, because I know exactly what the electric company is going to do. When they notice that the electrical usage has gone down in this area, there will be a rate increase. I'll give you a private example on my home. When the water rates go up, the first thing I do is I look around, how can I decrease my water in the house? I water maybe 3 days less a week in my yard in the summertime. I buy bottled water instead of using water from the faucet. I have energy efficient dishwasher now. I have an energy efficient washing machine. So I've done everything I can to decrease my usage of water. And it was solely motivated by the increase in the water rate. Because that's what utilities do. They raise their rates because their costs are fixed. They're not going down. They still have to cover their costs. So I'm just not sold that the long-term benefits are going to be there. That's just my opinion.
That is an unfortunate truth, that they unfortunately have the power, they have the control. the only thing I can do is provide a method to rely less and less upon them so that they lose the opportunity to charge you more if you're more independent. I agree. Maybe they will. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm coming back to 2 points. You know, actually, Harvey's comment kind of made me think of this. I mean, I don't think, don't take this the wrong way, but I don't think your foot would have been in the door if you didn't approach us. I mean, not every time somebody offers you a great deal doesn't mean you have to accept it. So, I mean, so what I'm going with that is and John, this is not against you, but seriously, I don't think council would have necessarily given 2 meetings and this much consideration if it wasn't you, Corey. And that's where it comes back to what I'm saying is I think it's because we all know you and we trust you, and that's a good thing. But
well, you're welcome.
But it comes to speaks to my point is that I think that's why we're here. And I honestly don't think this is a smart long-term investment to take on 20 years of whatever it is. You can spin it not saying you're spinning, but it can be sold any way, you know. But you can always, what's the saying? You can't put ketchup on a hot dog or ketchup on a sundae or something. I don't know, but where I'm going with that. But what I'm saying is, this is a big commitment. 20 years. It's just not something I think we should entertain. And I'll give you another story. I've worked for a couple Tier 1 automotives, and it's not about me, but I'll just make it quick. These engineers and these companies, they spend months of development, and they work and they develop with the engineers in the hopes of them getting the business. And then it's up to purchasing sometimes to say, hey, you know what, guess what? We found somebody better. So there's proprietary laws, and I understand that, non-disclosure agreements. But still, the point I'm making is people put investments in up front. That doesn't guarantee the business. So not trying to get hung up on $3,000, but again, if it's only $3,000 and you need to be covered, then you should be able to waive that. The argument goes both ways. You could say to the city, well, it's only $3,000. You should pay it. Well, I could say the same thing. It's only $3,000. You should eat it. So if you want to sign the letter of intent, I'm not going to vote for that motion, but if council does, you know, that's their decision. But I would hope to my council members that they make a stipulation that we don't authorize that money.
I do have a couple points I want to make. I would argue that this is fiscally responsible simply because South Lyon does have some budget issues, and if in the long run it's going to save us anything, then that's in the benefit of the taxpayers, and they come first. Secondly, overall, if we look at this holistically, what legacy are we leaving for South Lyon? Every single day, it's just getting worse and worse when it comes to emissions, landfills, whatever it might be. And I just think for the future of South Lyon, why not make it healthier for our children, for the other generations to follow, even if it's just something little. No matter how little, no matter how slight, it's still something that we're leaving that's going to be beneficial for the community. My next point that I want to make is I fully support having other bidders because, no offense or anything, but I mean, I don't care who you are. I look at you, it's a business perspective, it's not personal. So I would have given you the time of day, no matter whether you're Corey who owns the hotel or Joe Schmo. It doesn't matter to me, no offense. But I'm just saying, in general, it doesn't matter. It's business, it's not personal. So I would have given you the time of day either way. Also, I think we need to also look at other bidders just to get an idea of what other prospects are out there and what their prices are. Along the same lines, the $3,000 for the engineering, you said that these numbers are just estimates. If we were to pay you $3,000 to move forward and to crunch the numbers again, how would this change? Would it change drastically? Are these numbers 99.9% accurate? What kind of, I guess, reassurance can you give us that these numbers aren't going to change drastically based upon the $3,000 that you're going to use to do further investigations?
I guess I would say is these numbers are based on the space that we've seen. With the engineering design, you'd get the drawings, the actual layout, soil testing, all of the rest of that, to make sure that it's if there's any easements, we'd have it all laid out. Will it change dramatically? I don't think so. I think it'd be less than 10%, if that. So, but we do need to make sure there's nothing. No issues with lines. Start some negotiation with utility for interconnect. all of that. So that's what goes into that, which again, as I mentioned, you would own at the end of it. So I can't give you a guarantee it's not going to change at all, but it's not going to cut in half, or it's going to be a dramatic change. It may be a less than 10% change, I would guess.
What about if I called Detroit Edison this week and asked them if they would lease the land over here and put in their solar panels?
Well, I don't believe they've got a program going on, but there's nothing stopping you from asking.
Well,
if
they
they've got
do. They have a solar panel program.
Well, sure. There are various programs.
Why not just call DTE and let them come over and put it in over here?
Because then you would just be leasing your land in order for them to.
Yeah, but I'd be making
Very-
money. If I lease my land to DTE, I make money.
At the end of the contract, you're going to own these.
Right, and I would venture that you're going to make significantly more, save significantly more in the long run with your own solar panels, producing your own electricity, than just leasing your land.
Yeah, but if I can get them to put in batteries and store the energy, then whatever extra energy they are able to store, they can use or sell off. Plus, I get the rental payment off the land.
But they would have all of the electricity, so it would not be your electricity, it would just be what you're getting paid for leasing your land.
But I got a stream of income that's coming in rather than going out.
That's a good option.
You know, it doesn't fix the electrical issue though, so it's.
You also have a positive stream here after year 3.
Well, yet to be seen. I mean,
Okay, so let's,
Well, can I finish? I'm sorry. I wanted to really quick finish. My only thing is, with the $3,000, my reservation with that is that if we were to pay you and go forward and spend the $3,000 and then the numbers were drastically different, then we just spent $3,000 and we may not be going through with this. And that would be our loss in the end. That's just my only reassurance, is that I wanted that we had accurate numbers in front of us. That's why I asked that.
I don't know how we can make a decision without Lynn even here. I mean, and Bob, because
True.
she's going to be the one that you're working with. I mean,
true.
so,
I mean,
We're not going to make a decision.
well, but they're asking for, yeah, I know, but they're asking for it, you said earlier, us to give authorization for $3,000, and I would assume that would mean,
well, one thing we
Letter
didn't
of intent.
expect was
So-
Bob and Lynn to be sick either, so it was.
yeah,
kind
I
of a-
mean, if they've, I don't know.
so for whatever it's worth, I've met with them both several times about this. Bob even mentioned before that he's all for it because it goes with, all of the science that goes into the water facility. And Lynn, I mean, I guess we could wait for her opinion, but I mean, she told me she sees the savings. From to my knowledge, she's all for this. So, and yes, I would be working closely with Lynn, obviously, on all of it. So.
Irrespective, that $3,000 is going to end up being a blip. People are going to submit RFPs. Everyone's going to end up pulling dollars out of their own pockets to create the RFP. They'll have to do their own research. Everyone's going to end up having their own money, and it'll be amortized over whatever their pitch is. That you guys aren't going to end up being any different than that. So unless you can come up out of the gates after everyone has made their pitch and you have some remarkable angle that no one else has come up with.
Financing.
Well, I know, but you're assuming that no one else will be able to create something that'll be competitive to that. So I think you should just enjoy the fact that you've got our attention on this. I don't think that this is going away. Personally, I'm going to be talking with Lynn. I want us to end up looking to get the RFPs and move in that direction. So find out what the real viability of this is, and find out if the competitive edge that you guys are proposing is the high end, the middle end, the bottom end, and see if that incites us to take action. So that's the way I'm looking at it.
Sure. I guess I'm confused. The next step for us to go forward is the letter of intent and the
I
soft
know
cost.
the RFP, though, will put everybody on the same footing. You'll all be doing exactly the same thing. We've got pretty much your first blush pitch.
Sure.
So the rest of the groups anybody that has an interest in entertaining the idea of giving an RFP will end up being in the same boat that you're already at. So they'll end up putting their information together, make their pitch, and we'll get a sense of where things genuinely stand in that industry. I mean, so there'll be perhaps different vehicles of how they end up distributing power, how they distribute the wealth. I mean, there's a number of different approaches that can be taken to essentially provide the hardware, or install the technology, and us to realize savings. So we'll have to find out what everyone's version of that story is.
And I'd also like to add that, if we're going to do this approach, then I think and I believe and I feel strongly that Lynn needs to look at all aspects of renewable energy, and that includes contacting DTE directly and contacting other solar panel companies. I mean, you're not the only rodeo here. I mean, so, and in the past, we hired the attorney and we hired other firms. There was a committee that was placed together by council members, and personally, I don't want to sit on it, but I believe if there's other council members that want to sit on that, then that should be open and put in place to interview all the companies and get all the proposals together and have a formal process, not just a couple meetings here and there. So,
the one thing I know, this council's put some pressure on our city manager, Lynn, and to bring things to the table. And this is a big proposal, for us to look at. But I still look at it as being, my company spent money doing things sometimes and we've lost the job, but we've also, it's a funny industry. And the solar energy, the energy industry, I don't know whether DT is the people you want. They already have a monopoly kind of on everything. I mean, that's the reason why these companies are starting to pop up and start to create a little bit of a riffle in the energy sector, for better words, a little wave. We just had a big loss of power over the weekend out here. It couldn't have come at a better time, in a sense, to me, showing us that we need to start looking at alternative things, because this is not going to go away. The weather's been getting worse with the power lines the way they are. The just-in-time engineering that's being required to repair them is costing the taxpayers money. Cost them a lot of money. And I'm not just saying that. You could be, I won't say Joe Schmo, I'll say Willie Williams, I don't know, whatever. I mean, somebody has to start bringing this stuff to the table, and Lynn was confident with talking to you prior to this coming to us, and Bob was too. And so I put my confidence in them for looking at it. Whether we go forward is a whole different ballgame. We need bigger numbers. We need all the add-ups. What are the additions? What's being subtracted? How much do we gain? How much do we not? What's the estimated? But, I look at it as being, I'm a little bit of a risk taker. That's my nature. And, but especially when I see a huge potential for something really good to happen, and usually you have to take a little risk sometimes for that to happen, and we talk a big game about saving the taxpayers money, but when it comes down to really doing it, we're not doing it, so people can say they are, but it's not happening, and that's my take.
Well, I mean, I'll repeat myself, $750,000 is what we're estimating in savings, so.
So it's not an action item, so I think we need it.
Thanks, Corey.
Yeah, this was brought before us here regarding.
From the last meeting.
And it was revised
business.
information. We spent over an hour now
Well-
on the revision.
Well, the time is a good
revised
I
discussion.
think this was a good, I think
fine.
this was well spent, because this is part of the problem. Again, I wasn't here, it's my fault for not being here at the last meeting, but, this information needs to get out to the public so they can see it. There's gonna be a division in the line between who likes it and who doesn't. But this is a definite attempt to try to save the taxpayers money. It's gonna cost money to save money. And the RFP process is a big deal. Again, everybody has to go and have a fair shot to try to get their bids out there. Sometimes you gotta spend, sometimes you do have to, I don't know, I don't know what our situation is here. I mean, we sit up here where this isn't technically for people out there, this isn't really a full-time position for any of us. We all have jobs outside in the real public sector, and we try to do the best job we can, and we have people that are in position that run those departments that we rely on to give us the information that we believe is either true or not. And I don't profess to be an expert in water waste treatment. I've worked for environmental firms, but I know enough to be dangerous, that's it. And I know a lot about solar power. I don't know all the numbers. I've dealt in the industry, and I know the arguments. We deal with them all day long. So I look at it as being, it's our job to help guide the right formula for the potential savings for the taxpayers in this town. That's why I look at it as spending a little bit of money on our end when we own the engineering when it's done. If we didn't own the engineering when we were done, I wouldn't be for it. But being that we own it, it's ours, and it doesn't give you guys an inside route because we own that engineering, and then people could ask for it from us, and I don't know what we do with it at that point in time, but they may come back with something better, poke holes in your, in your program. So, if you didn't say we would own it, I wouldn't be interested in doing it either, probably. But to me, that's the difference, so that's my final say on it, so. Again, it's not an action item, so I guess we're not gonna vote on anything, but I think you should talk to Lynn
So what's the
And
next
Bob.
step? Talk to Lynn?
and Bob and see if you can
Yeah,
get,
they're gonna have to put something together.
put some
Bring it
numbers
to-
together. Maggie had questions about how it's getting on our end. I mean, it's only 3,000 for the engineering and the soft stuff, but she wants to see, numbers that we're gonna be able to, if we do this, or can we even pay for this somehow, I mean, our budget is kind of a little bit of an issue that's been changing, pretty quickly. And,
So specifically, what numbers are you looking for then?
We need to do the due diligence on our
our
side.
due diligence,
Gotcha,
yes.
okay.
We need to
Thanks,
see what the actual numbers are for our electrical use for a year, what the proposed savings would be, compare that to what the lease would be. We have to figure out if we're gonna do this, how are we gonna afford it, how are we gonna pay for it? And three, the engineering that we'd be getting, we need to know what engineering it would be. Like a breakdown of we pay $3,000, what do we get for $3,000? Engineering is a broad term. I mean, is it just preliminary, we think we'll put it here, or what do we get for the $3,000? So those are, I think, numbers, we would need to know those explanations before we can really go forward on this.
And I might add that Lynn would also probably, to make it fair for the other company, she would have to open up the RFP and ask for the same, and there would have to be a process and a timeline in place where other businesses could submit their proposals, and she would have to detail exactly what kind of proposals we want submitted, and it'd be a process, so.
So that's where we'd have to go. But we would have to do our due diligence first and compare it to your numbers.
Okay.
Thanks, Corey.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, nice presentation.
Thank you.
Under new business, consider approval of licensing agreement with FiberTech, Light Tower Fiber Networks.
Right, Mr. Mayor and council. So we have two items tonight that are connected. One is specific as to a company we're referring to as FiberTech, and they have existing telecommunications facilities within the city's right-of-way, and they are proposing to install 3 DAS or distributed antenna system nodes, which are excluded from the Metro Act. So they are not considered to be telecommunications facilities, and this license agreement is modeled on the Metro Act and the Metro Act permit, and would provide them with access to the right-of-way and the ability to maintain those structures within the right-of-way. In this particular instance, they will be locating these antenna on existing poles. One of them will be replaced with a 45-foot pole, and basically it's all outlined as it would be. The terms are very close to what is in the Metro Act permit as far as what they're required to do, what their rights are, what the city's obligations and rights are under the Metro Act. And they have existing telecommunications facilities and wires, I think most of it's aerial, that they will connect this equipment to. We've seen the specifications. The map is Exhibit A, so there will be 3 nodes. One's up by the high school, one's by the railroad tracks on the north end, and one is on 9 Mile just west of Lafayette. We've seen what these are gonna look like. They've given you a simulation photograph. So those are Exhibit B. The bond will be Exhibit C, and the rate or fee schedule is contained in Exhibit D. And the numbers, those amounts were negotiated with Representative for Fiber Tech, and we were trying to encourage them to locate on existing poles rather than erect new poles within your right-of-way. The one thing in dealing with the Fiber Tech rep today, we would like to, and I think this is agreeable to me, is to take the suggested motion condition item 1B regarding the overall height for new and replacement poles being 51 feet. And we would add that language verbatim into Exhibit B that would go along with the specifications.
I have questions.
So I'm available. I don't know if there are any questions. You've seen this document before. They did pull out one of the nodes because it's not located within the city. This shouldn't be controversial. It's really just giving them an agreement to use your right-of-way for these particular, they'll be located on existing poles. They're required to build what are in the specifications.
I have a question. Thank you. First question is more of a housekeeping. On page 11, I see it says City of Farmington Hills, and then the date is 2016. That's page 11.
I apologize for that.
So I assume that's a typo, or used another agreement and just didn't change the name.
Yeah, Fiber Tech is in other communities. Farmington Hills is one. So I apologize for that.
No problem. Well, I mean, not a huge issue. Next question is just regarding the fee schedule, Exhibit D. And my question is, just help me understand, because I wasn't in these talks, obviously. When they come out and they install a city-owned traffic signal, how long would they be out?
Not be on a traffic signal.
Okay, yeah, it says that in the, okay, so it doesn't apply for that one?
They would have to come, anything, you've got locations for where they will be erected.
Okay.
These antennas, it's on existing poles. If they were to do it on a street light, and these are, if you want to make city assets available to them, we would negotiate out a separate agreement to use those, and that fee structure is in here. You still have to go through another negotiation process with them to make your assets available and to have them maintain equipment on. So if you wanted to make City Hall available, or other light posts within your community, we would negotiate out the terms of that arrangement.
Okay, because, thank you for clarifying, because the way it was presented to us, it says in this fee schedule, city-owned traffic signals, city-owned streetlights, and, for example, $600 for them to come out and replace on a traffic signal. I would imagine we'd have to have the police involved, directing traffic, downtown would be inconvenienced. To me, I feel like we should be getting more than $600 if that was the case.
Well, there's a balancing, there's a policy issue here. Where do you want these pieces of equipment? Do you want them on an existing structure, or do you want them to erect a different pole that's?
Yeah, I'm not suggesting, I'm just speaking to what's in front of us today. And if that's the case, like I said, I don't think this is a good negotiation, that's all I'm saying, is, if that's the case. Based off of what's in front of us. I would think if they're gonna come out and the fee structure is $600, it should be, I don't know, much more than that, so. But I mean, as a whole, but like you said, this is just if we were to entertain these spots, correct?
Right, so they're limited to the 3 nodes and locations that are included within the Exhibit B to this agreement.
Is there any way we could pass this with removing Exhibit D?
Well, let me take a look at it. I think if you remove the city,
Because I don't want to pass something and then we need to go this route, and all of a sudden we say, hey, this isn't really fair to the city. So I'm just,
if you wanted to eliminate the city-owned references to Exhibit D, I think we can do that.
And this agreement is for the city-owned poles. not?
There are no city-owned
Right,
poles
so it's just-
entertained here.
Okay,
Okay.
So they're all DTE or AT&T, they took the AT&T one out, so they're all
Got it.
DTE.
Okay.
poles, I believe.
okay,
John,
Mike.
is FiberTech negotiating with DTE for the use of the poles?
They have a pole attachment agreement. I have a copy in my file. It's rather tedious and detailed. If you'd like to see it, I have it.
No, I was just
But
curious.
They do have an arrangement with DTE throughout southeast Michigan.
All right, so the pole that's gonna be replaced, that's a DTE pole,
Correct.
and then DTE would be incurring the charges?
The city will not, I don't know who's bearing the charge on that.
Okay.
Whether it's FiberTech. They also have their own clients. that
But it's
they're-
not us.
It's not us.
And we have no idea what the intended use is for these?
They're basically mini cellular antenna that they put on top of structures
Okay.
from our poles. So there's
Is
an
that for their
antenna, a
clients, or
bracket,
is-
There's electrical equipment, and usually down below, and you can see what the specifications are. There's usually an equipment box of some sort, and to get into the details, the National Electric Safety Code requires that these antenna be a certain distance from the live power lines. So depending on the height of the existing pole, they can either go below, if they're far enough above ground, or they replace the pole and go above it. So it depends on the exact circumstances on each pole.
Would these be for like services for like
Yes.
Verizon or something? Okay, all right.
They have not been forthcoming on who their clients are.
That's fine.
It's usually somebody else that does a wireless or cellular type service. And the second component of this agenda item would be to approve the use of this type of agreement with any other company that came in looking to do something similar, a DAS type concept.
John? So this would end up being the template for everybody that comes henceforth?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Just to be clear, I mean, there is a disclaimer on that Exhibit D on page 15 that says any approval as such will require a separate city council action. The figure of 51 feet, where did that come from? Was that their idea, or did that just come out of the ether?
This particular company does not, if they need a new pole or replacement pole, they don't install any pole larger than a 55-foot pole. So once you put it in the ground, it has a certain depth into the ground, and then there's a bracket and antenna, and they believe that they can always accommodate under 51 feet under that circumstance.
Okay, all right. They typically vary, I think, 10% of the pole. Okay, if we approve this, and I don't see any reason why we wouldn't, I'd like to make sure that Lisa has a calendar that, as of the effective date, we have a date on there 13 and a half years away, so that in the event that we decide that we don't want to re-enter this agreement, we can take action before the 15th year begins. So it says you have to give notice 1 year prior to the expiration, so I don't want to lose an opportunity.
So Tim, if the first motion would be, and this is just before I actually do it, but the first motion would be to approve the license agreement for access to and the use of right-of-way for the DAS antennas, subject to the conditions presented or outlined in the suggested motion?
Correct.
Okay.
There are 4 conditions listed.
All right.
And as I indicated, unless there's some objection by council, that language from B as a condition would be included on Exhibit B within the agreement itself. So that it's clear from the agreement and the standalone document that 51-foot maximum height limit is in the document.
Okay. Then I'll make the motion then to approve the license agreement for access to and the use of right-of-way for DSA antennas with FiberTech, with the conditions outlined in the suggested motion. Is that good enough?
And this would be signed by the city manager with authorization from council.
Okay.
So it's,
Sorry to nitpick, but do you want to update that last page as well?
With D?
No, I'm sorry, page 11, where it has the.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know if that needs to be in the motion, that's all. Just
Changing the language from, or the city from Farmington Hills to South Lyon,
And the dates.
and the date. Okay, thank you. Same motion as amended.
Is that with the modification to Exhibit D?
No, we didn't touch D, right? I don't know.
This one.
No, it's not.
All right, third time's the charm. The motion's gonna be to approve the license. First of all, I'd like to withdraw my motion. Did anyone second it?
No, so
Okay,
just
all right,
withdraw.
I'll withdraw it. Motion's gonna be then, to approve the license agreement for access to and the use of right-of-way for DSA antennas, as presented with the 4 conditions. In addition, we would remove the, city language in Exhibit D. Would that be the fee schedule? And with the correction of, South Lyon instead of Farmington Hills and the date in the actual contract.
I don't want to be particular, but you said DSA 3 times in all 3 of your motion moves instead of DAS.
Oh, is it DAS? I'm sorry.
Fourth time's a charm.
I don't know if we need to be that particular, but, I mean, if you could just,
Yeah, it's a friendly amendment, and I'll accept
yeah.
it.
Okay. I'll support.
Discussion. Tim, do you, I just want to ask a question on the antennas. The antennas, do they emit any frequency? Is there any frequency coming out of these?
I don't know that I can answer that technically. I presume so. It's an antenna of some sort that deals with wireless communication. I assume there's some ability to communicate wirelessly with this antenna, which they connect to their aerial and ground telecommunications facilities.
Because DTE has had issues with some of its other equipment that has recently been installed on homes with respect to the signals and frequencies coming off of them. In fact, there's some recent Michigan legislation which is providing consumers with an opportunity to choose whether or not they want this technology on their house or not. So I would just like to ask the question as to whether or not there are any health consequences to the frequencies that are being emitted from here, given DTE's recent history with technology and that issue.
I don't know the answer to that. I would generally respond that in the wireless communication, the federal law and the state law tend to, there are specific references on whether the health effects of this type of technology can be raised as a basis for denial. Now, this is not that circumstance, but the state law in dealing with wireless technology does address that issue. I can't cite it verbatim sitting here, but that issue is raised under federal and state law with respect to wireless communication.
Thank you.
There's a motion of support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No?
Second motion? Tim,
Yes.
we need to make it? All right, approved, I'll move that we approve the license agreement for access to and use of the right-of-way for DAS antennas, support structures and equipment as a general form for use with other telecommunication providers.
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, the first reading of the ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the city of South Lyon, conditionally rezoning 500 Stryker Street, partial number 21-29-176-012 from R3, one-family residential, to L1, which is light industrial.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Hopefully I won't lose my voice completely here.
Can you tell everybody who you are, just so they know?
Yeah, Carmen
We know.
Aventini, CIB Planning, planning consultant for the city. Before us is a conditional rezoning request for the property. It's a long, narrow property located behind the manufactured housing community and before you get to the cemetery. And just to give you a little history on this property, the applicants, before they purchased the property, came to the Planning Commission and discussed, what are our options for this? And we looked at the long list of permitted uses in the residential district, and we went beyond that and looked at all the other, potential uses in the district. And each use that they brought up, there were issues because the Yerkes Drain separates this property. About a third of it is behind the Yerkes Drain, and access as a result became a real problem. So whenever we talked about possible residential uses, for example, the fire chief said you need a second means of access. In fact, most of the uses that we talked about, you needed a second means of access, which is very difficult to get on this property, not to mention the fact that we were always concerned about not having a lot of traffic traversing the road that goes next to the cemetery, for obvious reasons. So after looking at the wide range of uses and looking at what would be a low impact use that would be beneficial in this particular case for the manufactured housing development and would have low impact on the cemetery, it was the Planning Commission recommended that they look at a self-storage facility. And they did follow up on that and have put together a conditional rezoning request. That means that if you were to approve this rezoning, that it can only be used as a self-storage facility, not all of the other uses that are permitted in an industrial zone. And a couple of the conditions they've added to this, to their request, which I think are very important, is that they will meet all ordinance requirements for screening. And I know the Planning Commission is very sensitive to making sure, especially the side facing the cemetery, the Planning Commission is very sensitive about what the appearance will look like for obvious reasons. And this will also go back to the Planning Commission for final site plan review and approval. So some conditional rezonings you might see in other communities, they go to the council and that's the final approval. The Planning Commission wanted to make sure that they had the ability to really dig into the final details, things like fencing, landscaping, building materials, all of those issues. They want to make sure they've addressed completely by having this go back for final site plan review. So with all of that, there is a recommendation from the Planning Commission to approve the conditional rezoning with the conditions that you have in your packet here. This is something that I know the Planning Commission and the applicants have spent probably a good year working on, looking for a suitable proposal for this. And if you have questions, additional questions that I can answer, I'll certainly be happy to answer those. The applicant is here, and I'm sure can answer potential operational questions. It hasn't gone to final site plan yet, so there are still many details, final, specific details to be worked out on the buildings and the site itself. But in terms of the actual use, and you've got they submitted information, gives you a pretty good idea of what this is going to be as a part of the conditional rezoning. So if you have questions, I'll be here to answer.
Go on.
I have, I thought I had seen something in here where planning wasn't going to have a shot at this, and I thought that seemed very unusual. That was going to be my first question, was why not? So I'm glad to hear that they ultimately will be involved in that. You've got 7 buildings totaling 74,300 square feet of space. I see 1 hydrant on the site. I was wondering, Mike, are you comfortable with that?
No, but we haven't seen an official site plan yet.
Okay. I'm hoping that the 300-foot thing is contained in this. Okay.
Sure. Yeah, we've had, what we were asked initially were, as Carmen said, what's available there, and it's a very challenging space. If they were to do residential, their secondary egress would be required, and they'd also probably be looking at force suppression, which would drive up costs. Yeah, in terms of the hydrant layout, we haven't seen any sort of official site plan. So once it even went through planning, we would then, us in building, would receive the official site plan. And based on this, I think hydrant spacing is going to be 250 feet. So there's probably going to be at least 2 or 3 that are going to have to be in there. And that's going to be a cost to the developer to put to run that water.
Because there's literally 1 spec'd in the sketch that we've got. So
yeah, and that's
right in the middle, Okay. All right, thank you. That's all I had.
Yes, Carmine, I just had a couple quick issues on this. Who is the applicant? Okay, welcome. Yes, and you do have a I went over to the property. I want to thank you for being as creative as you can with the property. That is a tough piece of land. Did you buy it in anticipation of opening up a storage facility, or, I'm just curious on the decision to purchase, or did you buy the land and say, I'll figure out what to do with it? I'm always,
Yes, to the second question.
oh, really? Really? Do you
Pretty
do?
much. It was, I'm a small-time residential builder. My oldest son is, my youngest son is the architect involved in this. And we were thinking of houses, but it just didn't work out. And then we tried other stuff, and one thing led to another, and nothing worked out. As Carmen said, we've been working on it over a year. And it just seemed like, okay, if nothing else, what would work there? And that kind of came up, the storage facility.
That's going to be a good business opportunity, I think. I think that's going to be a good business opportunity for you. I think you're going to find out that you're going to be filled right away. In fact, I have a couple of things at my house that I would like to be a candidate for, so I'll be interested in seeing your rental form.
It sounds good.
This gives us an opportunity, or at least me an opportunity, to talk with you directly. The city is going through a rebirth of some sort. How it's going to be defined 5 years from now, I don't know. But there are a lot of coals in the fire, a lot of energy is moving. A lot of businesses are lining up to come into the city. Part of that, I just was at a special workshop to begin looking at providing economic incentives, blah, blah, blah. The reason I'm telling you this is because you are in that area. You're close to the downtown. That I would hope that when your architect, the son, puts together a plan for this facility, that we can have a very nice structure over there on that lot. And Carmine has heard the story before from me. If it wouldn't fit in Birmingham, don't put it here. I mean, really, that's my mantra. If Birmingham would not approve it, or Bloomfield Hills would not approve it, don't put it in my town. So what I'm saying is, I would love to see just a really nice structure, maybe something creative, maybe something with sandstone on it to make it look like it's up in an upscale area. I know you can upscale these buildings, and that's all I'm asking, because you're in an area that I think probably 5-10 years from now, you're going to see a lot of remodeling of homes on that Lake Street area, in the downtown area, because it's prime for picking, for people to come in and start rehabbing some of the older homes. And I would like to think that you fit into that plan, so that whatever product you put in there today is going to be a wonderful product that fits in there 10 years or 15 years from now, as that downtown begins to change and upgrade is basically what's happening, is going to happen. Additionally, you're in an area right there by Paul Baker Park, which for most cases has been very well maintained. You're right there. I know exactly where you're at. People are going to be able to see it from Paul Baker Park. So rather than have an industrial look to it, if you can, make it appear like it fits into the residential area of it. How you do that, that's the genius of an architect to create it. And that's the only thing I would ask on it, is that you consider where we're going and put a very, very nice product in there. So other than that, thank you for coming to South Lyon.
You're welcome. Any other questions while I'm up here?
Yes, not a question, but Mr. Showers, I wanted to actually tell to the council, I did not recognize this until I saw you here. I recognize that we actually know each other.
Face.
Yeah, and the reason why, what I'm getting at is the Showers family from Northville. I grew up in Northville and from Boy Scouts. So I don't know if that's a conflict. We haven't spoken in years, but it's.
Yeah.
I didn't think so. I wanted to just let everybody know that.
And it's that same thing. We're kind of a small town, and you're going to know a lot of people, and your friends. And
I saw the address and I saw the name, and I figured it was a coincidence, but not. So it's nice to see you. So.
I kind of think that's a benefit.
Yep.
If
Okay.
it's used right. So.
I'll make the motion then to approve the first reading of the ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the city of South Lyon, conditionally rezoning parcel number 21-29-176-012, also known as 500 Stryker Street, from the R3 district to the I1 district.
I'll second
All in favor?
that.
Aye.
Welcome. Look forward to seeing it.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Hope your arm gets better.
Consider approval of the contract amendment and extension of Safe Built.
In Lynn's absence, I can try and introduce this one. Dennis Smith, the building official from Safe Built, is also here. There have been retirement in the building department, which has provided an opportunity to have Safe Built add some services, and that's really all. I don't know much of the detail on this one. Dennis, can you shed any light on?
Yeah, basically, Dennis Smith with Safe Built, your building official. Basically, it does a couple of things. One, it extends the contract currently that we have together, expires March 29th of this year. So this would extend the contract for additional 3 years. Secondly, it allows for the permit tech position that is currently vacant to be more of a permanent operation for you with one of our employees, thereby saving you money. So you don't have expenses incurred, et cetera, with that. And there's also an ability, because of the discussion item, I see in here that if there's an opportunity for it to become a full-time position with a combination of things and some administrative changes within your office, we have that additional item there that the rate actually is reduced. And again, our employee becomes a more permanent fixture in your office every day with the team that we currently work with. Nothing else changes. Service rates, percentage fees, nothing else changes. There's no other changes to that.
That's what I wanted to ask. There was no mention of anything here, and I'm thinking it's an important aspect of a 3-year.
The percentage remains the same, the hourly rates remain the same for the other conditions. So
Maggie, you have a question?
the only difference would be the permit type change.
The only thing, the only question that I don't have an answer to, and I'm not opposed to postponing this until the next meeting, is I kind of wanted a cost analysis of how much we would be losing from revenue if we give up 90% of our building permit fee, plan review, inspection costs, all of that. I just don't know how much, I haven't seen a real good cost-benefit analysis of this. And that doesn't mean that at the end of the day, you're probably the best deal in town, but I would like to see a cost-benefit analysis to make sure that that's what we should be doing. Because this is revenue that's now going to be coming out of our budget and going to your, and because, of course, you're performing the services.
Yes, but it's also based on fees brought in, so there's really no,
Right.
there's two parts to this. Is the fees that we're talking about are fees that are generated by the permit system. It's not a general fund.
Right, it's passed through.
So you have to understand that. I understand your question. It's not an uncommon one. Obviously, we've proven time and time again that the benefit is the fact that you're still taking in income and your expenses have gone dramatically down because you're not fulfilling legacy costs, employee costs, those types of things.
Yeah, that's probably the savings.
Percentage rate doesn't change either. That was something that was established three years ago, I believe, 2 years ago. So, but I understand what you're saying. I understand the question.
Tim, did you have an opportunity to talk to Lynn about this?
Yes, I did provide her with a review letter. The terms are, there are no changes in the terms other than the additions of the services. And
What was Lynn's opinion?
I think she was looking to do it, obviously.
Okay,
She put it on the agenda.
I can say that she was for it.
okay.
Anyone else?
I make a motion that we approve the extension of contract and addition of the permit technician, is that what it is? For the 3-year contract provided.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Consider adoption of naming policy for parks and other city-owned and operated facilities in related form.
Anyone here?
John, I had some questions. I see people looking at council as well. So I wanted to, I'm, on this particular item, I don't want to say disappointed, but it would have been nice to have Lynn here, because I had some questions, but no, I don't see anybody from Parks and Rec here. But,
wonder-
what's that?
I just wonder if they thought it was going to be put over, or, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but my questions were, and I'll just state them on the record, was I would assume that with the Maddie Doty Field that we just passed last year, that would be grandfathered in. I mean, we passed a resolution, and they've already gotten the blessing from, so I would think that would be covered, I would imagine.
Approved,
Yeah, okay. So I wanted to get that reassurance, but it sounds like I see everybody nodding their heads that we're good on that. Then my next question was just section D1 and G1 and G2. There's mention of financial contributions and naming. And I understand, I've spoken to the members of the Parks and Rec Commission, and I understand why they want this, so they can try and get funds to pay for these fields. I get that. I'm not opposed to that inherently. But what I am curious about is what is the trigger point for understanding how these financial contributions would be exempt. So, for example, it says here, just for the TV audience, that I apologize, I don't have it readily available, but it basically says that there's the quick summary is that we have a page of 2 pages of restrictions, and for the people who want to provide financial contributions, they don't necessarily have to meet all the qualifications. So I just want to know what the trigger is. So how much money do they have to donate? I mean, are we talking $1,000, $10,000, $50,000, whatever the case may be? Because I mean, this is kind of how the future is. You see, I was just at Dort Federal Credit Union Event Center in Flint, hockey arena. I never even heard of it before, but it's kind of where they're going towards. So I'd like to know that, and then also just a personal opinion was I felt that there should be some sort of a leeway for council to, I don't say overrule, but have some sort of a say if we want to take it upon ourselves to make our own dedication. I understand the intent. Don't misunderstand me. The intent is to have it go through Parks and Rec. They make the recommendation, but there's no mention here where it says that City Council can take it upon themselves to do a naming, which I certainly think the power should be, maybe power is the wrong word, but the balance should be Parks and Rec's hand, but also in City Council's hands. And right now it kind of seems as if we're the final say, we don't really have a seat at the table. So I would have liked to see that added. And then also, Lynn did bring up a really good point when she was talking about the reason, one of the main reasons for this policy is actually archiving and documenting all of the different fields and all the different memorials, because oftentimes there's memorials that we have that people don't even know. That's right. And 20 years from now, 30 years from now, it would be nice to have a registry in place talking about those. And in this policy, I didn't see any mention of this registry saying how we're going to categorize them, how we're going to archive them, who's going to maintain them. Because Parks and Rec, there's very good people on there now. 10 years from now, you can have complete turnover of the board. So I would have liked to seen that. So with that being said, I mean, I've done a lot of talking. I'll shut up, but I would like to see perhaps this go back to Parks and Rec because this is only a draft. Take those under consideration, and hopefully council will at least agree with a few of my points. Thank you.
Well, since Lynn isn't here and nobody's here from the Parks and Rec, I'm going to make the motion that we postpone this to the next meeting so we could have a discussion with the representatives from Parks and Rec and with our city manager regarding this. So we could bring this up.
Some of the questions that Joe had.
I'll support that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think they're obviously legitimate, so thank you.
So motion of support, all in favor?
Aye.
I will say I do like the gist of what they've done, though. I mean, it's just, that's kind of boilerplate. So.
Okay, update on proposal and status of discussion related to the school resource officer. So,
In the absence of the manager, I suppose it falls to me to offer some comment. The city manager,
Chief, I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm gonna abstain for this one. It seems like the right thing to do with my wife on the school board, and she's gonna abstain as well. And
certainly okay with me.
but I'd wanted to bring that to attention to council, like we did with the Sayer easement. Sorry to interrupt you. I apologize. But before you say any more, I can go to the back of the room as we did previous, or sit here and I won't say anything. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, I think where I
apologize.
left off, the manager had most of the meetings with the school superintendent, so that I was not privy to some of the meetings. I was at other of the meetings. The memo that I put forward to council is pretty comprehensive, gives a history of the program. The bottom line is the school district would like to reinstitute the school resource officer program, not only at South Lyon High School, but at South Lyon East High School. My understanding, at least, is that Lyon Township is open and actively cooperating in the process. In fact, I understand that even though the agreements are not in place, that they already brought the additional deputy aboard. Council probably remembers, at least many of you, that we had a school resource officer program at South Lyon High School for 8 years prior to the economy tanking. When the economy tanked and the schools were unable to contribute to the cost of the school resource officer, that was one of two positions, in the two full-time police officer positions in the police department that were left vacant due to the economy. The only way that I can see that we can afford to assign a school resource officer at the high school at this time would be if we brought another officer aboard, thus filling one of the two existing police officer vacancies in the police department. In the memo, there are a couple of financial models listed. The one listed and the one preferred by the school district is, of course, the one that is most advantageous and economical for the school district. There are other models out there, regardless of the financial model that may or may not be acceptable to council. At least conceptually, the police department is very interested in cooperating and putting a school resource officer back at South Lyon High School. So with that said, I'll just try to answer any questions that I can.
John? Mike? Do we have any idea of the agreement between Lyon Township and the Oakland County Sheriff's Department?
I think they'll have basically the same formula that the school district is putting forth to us. And they may be paying in the low $50,000 to $60,000 range per year. And that's only about 40% of what it would cost us to put an additional officer in place.
Well, I have to admit, I'm very biased on this because I have a son who's an 8th grader who's going to be starting high school next year. So I would love to see an officer in the school. However, I understand the costs associated with it. So it's one of those personal versus city interests that I'm trying to balance here, so.
It's something we would like to do. I don't know if council and/or the city manager can find the budget money that would allow us to do that. Whether it's done or not, council can rest assured that we will keep in place our existing programs of uniformed officers, not just at the high school, but at every single school in the city at arrival and dismissal times, our daily walkthroughs by uniformed personnel of every school at least once every day, and a program of plainclothes officers doing totally random surveillance of school buildings throughout the week.
Harvey?
I have a question for you, Chief. Are there any other communities other than the city of South Lyon that have kids at South Lyon High School?
There certainly are. I don't know the current percentages because those change every year, but the last time I checked, probably less than half of the students actually were residents of the city of South Lyon. I have to say I have not gotten the percentage numbers from the school district, which we could easily obtain since South Lyon East opened, so
Yeah.
my numbers are dated.
I'd be interested in hearing those numbers. Thank you.
And the city manager may be aware of those numbers, I'm not.
You know, I did some research on this, and I just sort of want to state that it's my understanding, I could be wrong, but I checked my facts out pretty good. The school district issued a bond, about $60 million worth, and it's my understanding that I have not seen it, but I'm going to go to the school district tomorrow. I have not seen the budget for the bond. And I would assume that some of that bond money went towards upgrading security provisions and accommodations in all the schools. And my fact is based on, I did an interview with some of my friends that have students at the elementary schools and at the high schools, and they have all told me that when you walk into those schools now, you can see the cameras, that there definitely has been a camera installation on the interior of the schools, both elementary and high school. I personally observed the cameras when I was at one of the grade schools, elementary schools, and in order for me to enter, I had to show my driver's license, and there was a camera there. So I know that there was a security upgrade there. What I don't know, and I would assume that some of those upgrades with respect to just cameras alone could probably approach $500,000, $600,000, because my understanding all the schools were done. I do not know what other security enhancements have been done to the school with the bond money. So I don't feel comfortable with this because I don't see where the need has been demonstrated. I think you need to demonstrate the need for this officer rather than it's a nice thing to do, because we had it in 2008. I think the business model is changing, and the business model is you need to justify the expense. And nobody has justified to me why we need to spend X amount of tens of thousands of dollars for a resource officer when the school district has already provided security upgrades from the proceeds of the bond. Now, I'm going to be FOIAing. Chief, I gave you a FOIA. I'm going to be giving a FOIA to the school district. I'm not interested, and I'll give Melissa a phone call tomorrow. I'm not interested in knowing the nitty-gritty details of all the security enhancements that the school district has done. That's not my issue. My issue is how much money have you spent, and if you have spent over $1 million upgrading those schools, then to me it becomes less and less important for this resource officer. Additionally, I do have a copy of the contract, and I don't know why it wasn't provided, but I do have it both for South Lyon and for Lyon Township. And I do want to note that this is on Exhibit C, This is this is for Lyon Township. I don't want Lyon Townships. But for South Lyon's resource officer, the cost was coming out pretty high. I think it was around 80, our cost was going to be about, here's South Lyon. They're looking for a resource officer for 15 months, and I believe that the total cost was about $180,000. That's what it is right here in Exhibit C. I'll show it to you.
I think maybe if you're talking 15 months, that would have been for the balance of this school year plus another whole
Plus another,
school
yeah.
year.
So the total for, because this is what the contract is for, it was for, here the exhibit says it's for 15 months. Total cost is about 180. Your memo says that the school district was going to pick up about 50%. I must have read 50% somewhere. I think it's really only 40%. So if we take 40% of the 180, roughly the school district will kick in about 70,000. That leaves South Lyon with a balance to pay for that officer of about $109,000, $110,000.
Those figures are roughly correct, and I previously did state that the school district's portion would be approximately 40% per year, when in fact they would be utilizing the officer for, based on a 40-week school year, basically 75% of a full year. So the model being put forth by the school district is not necessarily, as I said, the model that would be most advantageous to the city.
Well, it's a lot of money.
It is.
It's over $100,000.
And I'm not advocating for or against furnishing the SRO. However, if we do, I do believe we would need to add an officer. I think it would be an excellent idea to have the city manager available to speak to this and to have a representative from the school district to speak to this and to be able to answer council's questions.
Agreed.
So then I went to the Exhibit A of the contract to sort of take a look at what those responsibilities were going to be. And some of the responsibilities are for short-term programs to teach as an instructor. You know, to me, I don't know, that sounds like a union job. Let the teachers have their jobs. There's also things that are already being done by the police department. You just said that you're in there, you're going in there once a day in all those schools. It's clear in here that they do not necessarily want you to get into arresting anybody. It's more working in problem solving, solution solving. It's more of a public relations thing, and I see this as a quasi-social worker position. The resource officer would develop a working knowledge of students that may have behavioral, mental health issues. You know, I'm looking at these job descriptions, and I'm just saying that this is not where I want to put $100,000 when Bob Donahue is looking for money for facades for downtown. We can't do it all. And I think that's the reality that the city needs to face, is that if we're going to work on the downtown and improve that downtown, now is the time to focus on the downtown. To me, I have not seen a demonstrated need as to why we need this officer in the schools, and we need to pay maybe in excess of $100,000. But I will send a FOIA to the school district tomorrow and try to get some information on how much money they're spending out of the bond. They're going to have another bond probably in the next 2 years. I'm sure some of that money will go to security also. So I can't support this, at least not at this time. So I'm just.
Well, this is just an update on the proposal anyway, so.
Yeah.
Good questions, and I think what you said, Lloyd, the one thing I gotta say is that, you know, the technology is changing, and the amount of money that's being spent for security is really different these days than it used to be. Our number one security is our kids. And what a price is for that, I don't know. My kids aren't in the schools anymore. You know, Joe's kids are gonna be coming in, his kids are coming in, and times are changing. And having officers there to do a little more than what they normally would do. Just the presence there sometimes will deter some things from happening that maybe wouldn't normally happen, especially with the changing times we're in. But I'd like to see Lynn, our city manager, and someone from the school board come in and be able to answer the questions a little more in depth on the proposals.
I think also if you look at Exhibit C
I have
through
a
Lyon
moment, please.
Township, you'll also see Lyon Township's cost is less. They're about 166 total cost for their officer. And so what they will be, if they approve, will be 101. But I'll show you the difference in the cost of a Oakland County Sheriff and a South Lyon Police officer. Because it has the FICA, it has the retirement, and the medical benefits, everything. So their cost is lower because Oakland County Sheriff's costs are lower.
That may be, I haven't seen their
Yeah,
figures.
yeah, I'll give you the, by the way, I got this off of the school's website, so this contract is on the website.
Lloyd, has the department gotten any indication since 2008 of a change in behavioral performance of kids at the high school? Have you guys had more runs there than what you would have historically had when you had an SRO over there?
I'll comment without the benefit of having done research to give you firm numbers to back up my comment.
I'm just looking for indicators.
My perception is that the regular patrol officers are more frequently going to the high school, not in huge increased numbers, but the patrol officers are having to go there more because what normally would have happened or been handled by the school resource officer on site, now our regular patrol officers are having to respond to the high school.
But you would have had incident reports from an SRO before too, though, wouldn't you?
Yes, before the SRO would have taken the call for service or the incident report.
Well,
Now
I mean,
it's a
because you'd
regular
have to
patrol
pit those
officer.
against whatever the escalated activity from your regular patrol guys. And I'm just kind of wondering, the SRO officer, was he likely to have diffused situations, or would he have simply reacted to things as they occurred?
I think a fair answer to that question is both.
Yeah, okay.
Of course, the school resource officer, as any officer would, will react to a situation that he's presented with or that unfolds in front of him or her. I can say with confidence that many things would be avoided or at least diminished by the mere presence of the officer in the school.
I think it's still difficult to come to any other conclusion. It's just, does it warrant the expenses it's going to take to make that distinction, you know? To give us the benefit of them being there on site, are we gaining that much more financial protection? You know what I mean? Is that dollar being, when it's an at-large cost in the community, are you getting more benefit because you're kind of more roundly covering the entire community than simply this little sphere of where the
And that's
high
where it
schools are.
becomes a judgment call.
Right.
And that's why I said early on that I'm neither advocating for or against a position. I'm simply presenting information.
Yeah.
And it's bottom line and return on investment. You have to be happy with the bottom line numbers. With the schools picking up 40% of the cost of us going out and bringing a new officer aboard, the answer to your question may well be no. If they were paying 75% of the cost of us bringing an officer on board, the answer would probably be yes. Because then it wouldn't cost us that much to replace one of two vacant positions that we have. And the city and the police department and our citizens would gain the use of that school resource officer for 3 of our busiest months, that being the summer months when school is not in session. We then could have an additional overlap car to supplement our current 12-hour shifts.
The benefit that I'm hearing, though, is that it doesn't sound as though the doors are coming off because there isn't a full-time staffer from PD at the high school right now.
my perception is no, I don't believe the doors are coming off. I think the program that we put in place and that we're currently utilizing, the combination of uniform and plainclothes officers, particularly at arrival and dismissal times, is very effective. And
Yeah.
it becomes the judgment call again.
Yeah, well, hopefully Lynn can have more dialogue, and we could maybe look at what those numbers might be able to be moved to. So, yeah, thank you.
I can kind of speak a little bit to Glenn's comment, because I know when I graduated in '08 from South Lyon, there was an SRO there, and he was on duty at all times. And there would be times where there'd be 5 fights break out in one day, and having an officer there was, I mean, they would break up the fight immediately. And that was just from 2008, so I can't speak to what it's like in South Lyon right now, but I do know that drug rates have skyrocketed. So, I mean, there's a lot of drug issues, and a lot of that is coming from our young generation. So having an officer on duty, I think, has a huge impact. Just having an officer present and seeing them there sends a certain kind of message that you don't want to misbehave, or you don't want to misbehave just because you know the consequences an officer is present. So for me personally, I think it was a huge help having someone on staff, but also knowing the cost of it. I mean, I understand both sides. I understand both perspectives. I would like to hear what Lynn has to say and see her perspective on this, but speaking from a personal experience, or having gone to South Lyon High and knowing, it was helpful having an SRO.
Good to have this come back again with Lynn and someone from the school board.
I can't tell you how many times teachers have had to jump in and break up fights, but because there was an officer there, it was the officer who had to break it up.
So what do we do? Do we put this on the next agenda, or do we just tell Linda? Somebody tell Linda.
Just tell
Well,
Linda.
we've
asked for some additional information
Right.
anyway.
Yeah.
She could let Linda know, or Lynn can listen to the
Okay.
tape and hear what our
Minutes.
concerns are.
All right.
Prepared to address those with us.
That's fine with me.
Okay. Bob, downtown.
Any questions? Well, no, go ahead.
I do. I was actually in court today, and I was killing some time by chatting with an attorney that I knew, and he's actually on the planning commission for Ferndale. And he said that the city of Ferndale actually had somebody come in from the University of Michigan and did a course where they'd meet in the mornings, really, at 7:30, 8:30. And he explained to the planning commission, because they were going through the same thing we're going through now with the commercial districts and the tax abatements. And this gentleman came in from the University of Michigan and kind of educated the planning commission on, the benefits of these tax abatements, the benefits of, how do you determine the most bang for your buck as far as recouping the tax abatements that you might give developers or commercial, individuals coming in. And he said it was a very valuable program. Are you aware of anything like that from U of M, or if I can get that information, is
Sure,
that
I would
something?
love to take a look at it. I'm
Okay.
not aware of it.
Okay.
I know that Ferndale has not used them in the past. They're not in the Oakland County's database that I received all that information and gave that to you. So it's something new.
It's very new. He's only been on the planning commission for 6 months. So he
Sure.
said it
Love
was
to look at it.
okay. All right. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Peggy?
When are you going to be ready to prepare the facade grant program to council?
I would like to have the facade grant information to you at your next council meeting.
Will that include the form?
That's the form.
That is the form, okay.
Yep, application and the criteria.
Okay. And you are looking for a minimum of how much?
I'm looking in the proposal, in the recommendation, in the memo, that was $50,000, $45,000 for facade grants and $5,000 for sign grants. And again, I was following up on the idea of the city manager last August.
I mean,
Not my original idea. just for the record.
Well, this is clearly a very good program, and it's sort of beyond my comprehension how this did not get through council years ago. Because I have had an opportunity to speak with some city managers that have used this program, a facade program, and it is unbelievable the change that happens, and as one city manager told me, extremely quickly. And this is exactly what I'm getting at tonight, is that my fight is going to be for the downtown. I mean, I don't care about solar panels right now. I think the schools are fine. You know, they've got great security things over there. I have to look, for me, for every dime that I can find to pump into that downtown the next couple of years. The downtown has waited decades, and I mean decades, to be treated fairly, I think, as an asset of this community. I mean, I sit here and at the budget meeting and approved money for assets so that DPW has an extra leaf blower. And so the police department has an extra car to ride around in. And I don't mean to be short about it, but it's time for an investment in the downtown. It's time. It's time that the departments give a little bit and say, okay, I can go a year without a capital outlay. It's decades that this downtown has looked the way it is. And to think that we're on the brink now, within 60 days, of having change in that downtown would have been unheard of a year ago. So I just want to get my ducks in a row. I will not be approving anything that has come up tonight because my vote is going to go towards this, the downtown. It's that important. So you got my 150 support plus another 200. That's my soapbox tonight, the downtown. Next, I had a question. What has been done about bringing lights into the trees in the downtown area? That was discussed at some point.
That was discussed at DDA board meetings at the last the first ever DDA board retreat, February 16th.
How did that go?
The costs, without exact numbers, seem to be quite high without money in the DDA's budget. And without going to LEDs, which it's a long drawn out. They were rather looking at putting over Lake Street, possibly stringing lights from building to building. They instructed me to get estimates and doing kind of a lighted across the street.
You know, Rochester did that at Christmas time. They did the canopy lights, and it looked wonderful. I mean, it really did. It looked nice. It gave a nice. What they did was they had an event downtown, and they blocked off the downtown area, and they had these great smokers, these great fire pots going. They had the Rochester High School was there with the choir department at different corners and areas of the downtown area, doing fabulous Christmas carols. It was, I mean, Rochester really did it nice. Really did it nice. It was very nice. What kind of money are you talking about in terms of getting lights in the trees?
I don't know. I'm going to look at it. The DDA budget really can't accommodate it. They were talking about getting costs and then going after sponsorship because they really, until their bonds are paid off in 2 months, they are down to the bone.
Yeah, but I mean, if
in 2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
I know, but if it's a $10,000 cost, then you spend $5,000 this year and $5,000 next year, and the city pays for it. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. These are the choices.
I certainly, because I'm the director of the DDA and the board directed me to look at the costs, so I'm going to get costs for the canopy lights, definitely.
Did you find out what it would cost for the lights in the trees?
No, I haven't.
But could you?
I can. Yes, I can.
And maybe what we do is do Pontiac Trail first and Lake Street second. If it's 5,000 to do one street, I'm sure we could find a corporate sponsor to pick up maybe a third of that.
I will get the costs.
Has the zoning map been delivered over to the chamber yet?
I have no idea. No one's ever asked me.
I thought, okay, maybe Lynn was going to do that. Okay. Because I think South Lyon was the only city left that didn't have a zoning map. She's hanging them on the wall over there at the chamber, and I just want to make sure that,
I mean, I could certainly do that.
okay,
No one's asked me.
okay. Thank you very much. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thanks. I want to start off by saying that I agree the downtown is the most important, and also we also have many other areas that you're focusing on. I know that I see Domino's is coming in next to where the Witch's Hat was, and I know the jokes, let them roll. We have how many pizza places, but you know what? I'd rather see a building occupied and people employed and working than
More at this point, anyway.
exactly.
Good competition.
Exactly. So I know you're working down that end of town. You're working on the north end, where we have Salvation Army, and there's hopefully going to be lined with businesses, and we even have businesses other places in the city. So my point is, I know you're working all over the place. So thank you for keeping an energy outside of just the downtown. But with that being said, certainly the heart is the downtown of our city, and that's what draws people in. And when I speak to residents and I talk to people, that's what they say. Is they say, we need some improvements down there. And it's not just restaurants. I say this because maybe I'm spoiled and like to have a date night, which I don't get very often. But people want restaurants and they want foot traffic, and we all know what people want. So I think we're working towards there, but we need to keep that focus, laser focus on the downtown. With that being said, I do want to know that, do you tentatively, Maggie was talking about getting figures, do you have a budget for yourself?
I have submitted for
For next year,
cycle,
and yeah.
for needs that I see, trainings, things that I should be going to.
Okay.
Very minimal.
See, but that's okay. I mean, I'm not asking about $500 seminar, excuse me, tongue-tied today. I'm looking, we're going to have our budget workshop within the next couple months. And that's kind of what I'm getting at is I want you thinking big. I mean, if you need something, you need lights, you should be putting together your own budget. I mean, I was fighting over $3,000. It may seem piddly to some people, but if you can get lights for $3,000, I'm not going to vote for something where people can get business. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? I mean,
I'm trying to be very conservative because this is
no, but these are the decisions
a very
we have.
small community,
right?
And I don't want to, and I know the constraints
Right,
on other departments. But yes, I mean, I have no problem talking about basic needs that we need.
Okay, and I'm not trying to. Okay, listen. What I'm saying is, I would not be offended if you're pushing for money. If Chief, no offense, Chief Collins, but if you say, hey, Bob's trying to take some money, I'll be happy with that because we need to have that kind of focus,
Sure.
okay? So that's the discussion I'm trying to say, is that when it comes time for that budget, I want to be able to make those tough decisions and say, hey, Chief, sorry, I not to mean to pick on Chief Collins. I'm looking at both chiefs over here, but you're not going to get a police car. I'm not saying you're not, but just talking out loud, because we need to fix some things downtown. So hopefully,
I will definitely.
Yeah, thank you.
We had an excellent goals and objectives board retreat with the DDA, and a lot came out of that. And those minutes, and there's follow up to those minutes for projects, and definitely I'll have a list.
Thank you. And if it's a matter of okay, you're asking for $500,000, it's too much, then worst thing that can happen is we say no, right? So
That's right.
okay, that was it for me. Thank you.
I will say that, to follow up on Maggie's comment, is that I've put my whole career into downtowns. This is this is scary, 39th year. Oh my God, where did it go? But absolutely, it's been proven by economic studies. In fact, MEDC is about to embark on another study as part of the tax increment financing, keeping it or not, that a strong downtown will definitely stabilize and increase the tax base of not just the downtown.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But that will stabilize and increase the tax base of the entire community.
Right.
Unfortunately, the libraries didn't understand that. They pulled out of being partners in economic development. Not our local library per se, but the libraries just decided they no longer wanted to partner in economic development. They took away their tax increment financing. So we need those studies to absolutely prove the point that a strong downtown stabilizes and increases the tax base of the whole community.
Okay.
And we're going to see that soon, just for good backup when we're talking about spending this money. The MEDC is going to be getting into that, Michigan Economic Development Corp. The state of Michigan already has done it. So I'll definitely bring those to your attention.
Thank you. And I recall that we had, sorry, hand up, but I recall we did have a study, when was it, before I even got on council, years ago from, what was it, Michigan State and Michigan?
Michigan State both.
So I don't know if that's worth dusting off or if it's already long gone and business is turned over, but I don't know if you even know about that.
No, I'm not aware of that.
I think it's on the TDA website. There was a link to one of them, and the other one kind of went away, I think. I made comment to Lynn about it one time. I was just poking around and I thought it disappeared. I wasn't sure. But that was a really good study session. Joe's right. That was like two schools came together and did totally opposite
And I think they
type
spend
studies, and they did a pretty good job.
because one of my neighbors, I'm not going to say who, said that whatever happened, we spent all this money on this big study and you've got all these eggheads in the room and then nothing happened from it. So maybe.
I think some of it made it into the master plan, but there was some great artwork drawn in those things and some graphics showing what could be done in the alleyways and,
I mean, you've taken all the steps, and now it's time for this position to perform.
Right.
You've done a lot of ordinance changes, new master plan, and there's no reason in the world why this can't happen. We're all going to make it happen.
I'll say one thing. Maggie's comment, if you've been in Northville, and I know it's their buy-in shelter out there kind of parked with a fountain and all that and everything, and they string those canopy lights across through there. Well, you go through there any time of the night, all times of the year, and it's quite an impression. So I would love to see the lights on the trees. I mean, we were on the council years ago when we did the trees and the brickscape and the lamps and the whole thing. And it's nice to be able to add something to something we did a long time ago that kind of not a lot's been done since. But to have those canopy lights kind of crossing over from the buildings, I think would create quite an image, I think, as you're coming into town. I think that would be so good. I'd like to see the costs on the trees, but also on those canopy lights, because they're a big impact thing, maybe for not so much money, hopefully, you know.
We'll see, definitely.
Glenn, yes?
Yeah, you had mentioned the polls for trying to get banners across there.
Correct.
Has there been further action taken?
No, that's another cost item that I've got to get down to. I had preliminary discussion with Bob. We think it's in around the $2,000 to $3,000 to find the poles. These are wood poles, not steel poles.
Right.
And to the cost of finding them and having them put in place.
Okay.
$2,000 to $3,000, but we need an exact cost.
Now, I unfortunately, I was ill last Monday when you guys had your thing with Oakland County, and we've had plenty of conversations about the whole idea with the facade grants, and I still to believe that you give this incentive, they end up escalating the look of their building, but if I'm not mistaken, you had suggested that the assessors don't believe that will actually raise the value of the building.
I asked the assessor, I said, if it's a facade only, will the equalization immediately come along, and some people look at it as a penalty. Okay, you put this amount into your facade, are you going to get zinged? And the answer was, by Mary Ritchie, of equalization, is that no, the facade only would not immediately trigger unassessed value increase.
I wasn't so concerned about the property owner as I was with our investment. I'm thinking that it may not end up being a momentary thing where it immediately takes on that additional value, but I think that value will escalate much quicker if you have curb appeal than it does if you don't have curb appeal.
Collectively, once it gets
Precisely.
rolling.
So I think we're
upon-
buying our own
upon
advance.
reassessment of individual buildings over time,
Right.
it will.
I think we escalate the value much quicker by having it be pretty than not pretty. So, okay, I just wanted to get confirmation that that was their take.
Well, here's the timing issue, and you know, I talk about timing. The economics right now are very favorable for doing this kind of program, whether it's the tax abatement program or the facade program. Your timing is very good because the entrepreneur spirit is coming out with respect to businesses. There is no other place to go if you're an entrepreneur and you want to open up a fancy restaurant because the rent is too high now in Northville. It's too high in Milford. There is no place to go in Brighton because everything is taken. You have only one place to go, and that's South Lyon. So we need to understand that part of entrepreneurship is seizing the opportunity. You have an opportunity now, and that window is not going to be there forever. You know, so now is the time to give those businesses that have expressed an interest, give them an opportunity to upgrade their facades. If they start doing the facades in May, June, and July, then you will create a hubbub that is going on in the downtown area. You will get the community excited. You got the hotel that will be opening up this year with a new building, and you just might find somebody who says, oh, by the way, I'd like to dump $50,000 in Volunteer Park. This looks like the place to start parking my money. So I think that, again, my arguments, my advocacy this year is going to be for the downtown. It took a year to get everything in place, and now's the time to start stepping up and spending the money. So I don't mean to be offensive to the water department or to the police department or the fire department. I'm not approving any capital outlays except for the downtown. We just don't have money for everything. Now is the time for the downtown. It has to be the downtown. This is your window of opportunity. You've wasted 20 years in not doing anything. Now is the time. You have to do it now. So that's my advocacy. That's my soapbox for tonight. Downtown.
I had one item that I wanted to share with you, and then I will shut up and leave. When I was hired in June, started June 2nd, I had provided a work plan for what I hope to accomplish in the first 6 months, in the second 6 months. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Yes,
You did see that?
I think you did provide it, yeah.
What?
I don't have it with me, but
Okay,
today.
I just brought an update. I'll just leave it with you. Doesn't need to be discussed, but I color-coded kind of where we're at.
You should have gave it to it before you started in the beginning.
So I'm just going to present that for you.
Thank you.
And then another time,
Is this it?
we can discuss it.
Sir?
It's just kind of a status.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Wow. Just for the record, I mean, people watching in anticipation, and it's most everything has been either touched or in process, just so everybody knows. So this is great work. Thank you.
It's an incredible year.
Thanks again, Bob.
Thank you.
Lynn's not here. So,
I had a couple of
council
issues.
comments.
Well, can we ask just clarification? Even though Lynn's not here, we're set a precedent earlier that she's gonna watch the tape and maybe ask some questions. Is that okay to fire away? Anybody else want to start first?
I don't know if Lynn has signed the amendment to her employment contract, so I'm not quite sure what we're operating under. And she doesn't have to sign it. I mean, she's not required to amend her employment contract. So I don't want her to feel like she's under pressure or,
Been provided for signature. I don't know where.
oh, yeah, I mean, I,
It's not here, Lisa's not here, so I don't.
yeah, so, I mean, I just want to make sure that we sort of have that, and I'd like to be, as fair as possible to Lynn, is maybe we put this on the agenda for the next meeting and set a review time period for her, and if she wants October, like last year, that's fine. And maybe spend a meeting and work out some goals for her. She may already have some in place, and maybe we might want to add some, given Bob's talk tonight, but I'd like to get that moving, because we seem to have loose ends on stuff. And then also, what I wanted to ask Lynn was her determination as to whether the city is required to have a functioning construction board of appeal. That question never got answered, so that's on my checklist. I just want to know if that's where she was on that. Whether we need to have it, whether we don't, so I can get it off my checklist. Yeah.
You do have one. We do have members. Some of them, I think there was a report, I don't remember exactly how many, but some we were unable to get in contact with them. And I would have to circle back and make sure, but I think we had enough for a quorum, and we probably ought to be looking at appointing new people to the extent that you can't get a hold of some of those members.
Well, then maybe we should get that on the agenda and clean that up a little bit. I'd also like to see the bylaws for that. I don't know if I saw any, do they have bylaws? I mean, I would think they would, maybe not.
I'll have to look.
I think we probably need to take a look at that.
No?
May I address the?
Sure, sure.
Yes?
The first question, do we have a construction board of appeals? Yes. I actually talked to the chairman about a week ago.
Okay.
Do they have bylaws and things? Their regulations and bylaws are already governed by state statute, Public Act 230 of 1972, I believe, is the statute, State Construction Code Act. It spells out very specifically what they can do and how they function. And those are in a policy already written as part of the entire building department process. So that was established years ago.
Great. Is there any way for me to just get a copy of that? I just want to stand.
Yeah,
That'd be great, just see a copy of
it's
it.
just, it's based on the statute, so it's.
So all you do is adopt whatever the statute says.
Which we already did
Which
because
was
the
already
city
done.
already adopted the State Construction Code Act vis-a-vis the Michigan Building Code.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm getting a lot of my questions answered. Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. It's been very helpful.
For the manager, no.
Yes, I just wanted to, I'm sorry. I was going to ask Lynn, I'm looking right at her. She's not sitting
I know.
there. That's what, I guess we're normal response. But I was going to ask Lynn if she had an update on the MERS. I know she was attending a conference, and she was going to get some advice how to proceed. And as I said, last year, my intention is to bring this up every meeting just to see if there's any updates, to make sure it's in the forefront. Because as I stated before, we have gone from $2.7 million in unfunded liabilities to now we're up above, it was 4.7 the last report I heard. Who knows where it is today. So I just wanted to keep that on the forefront and see if she had an update, because she did say last meeting that she was attending a conference and was going to get some legislative updates or some good news, hopefully. So that was my only question for Lynn. Thank you.
Okay. Council comments. Glenn, start with you.
Well, I'm glad that the city is finally on regular DTE power. Everything seems to be attended. Is there anybody in the city yet that doesn't have power? Are you aware, Lloyd?
I'm not aware.
Okay, all right. Did you hear something?
I heard this morning there were 2 neighborhoods out.
Yeah,
Is that right?
Off of 10 Mile.
Oh, okay, because I had heard,
Lyon Boulevard still out?
Is that right?
Mine came out about an hour ago.
Oh, good.
It was pulled down in our backyard. So.
Oh, okay. Well, that was, we, personally downtown, we ended up having to survive for one day, so it wasn't quite as awful. I just felt terrible about the idea that, as the temperatures were descending, and people are still out. I thought that had to have been pretty rough on them, so I'm grateful that part's over. Hopefully we don't end up turning into snowmageddon with this last wave of weather coming through. So that's all I have. Thanks.
I wanted to first start off and say thank you to Mr. Hogan Thank you for coming in tonight. I think it's important to hear residents' feedbacks, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I think it's important that people come in and say their thoughts and feelings, and you should be appreciated. And on that same note, you brought up a very good point. Employee morale is down. And when I say that because I've come in and I've spoken with various departments, and everyone is doing a great job. All of our employees in South Lyon work very, very hard. And in light of the recent events, it's not everyone's opinion that they're not doing a great job. And I can't speak for everyone on council, but I do want to express an apology to all of our employees in South Lyon, and if they feel that they're being attacked at all. That's not the case. And sincerely sorry, and also on top of that, thank you for all that you do for South Lyon. And on that note, thank you again for bringing up the issue and for just shedding some light on it as a resident. Also, have a happy and safe St. Patrick's Day. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Yeah, I was going to, council decided not to take any action on the fraudulent water bills, and honestly, I was going to let it go because I felt, brought it to attention, council decided not to do anything, so I felt kind of that was that. But since it was brought up today, I'm just going to respond a little bit, and not much, just a little. But first, I want to thank Mr. Hogan. Thank you for coming in. I think it's wonderful that you came up to speak up and let us know some feedback. And sir, I appreciate what you said in your defense of Bob Martin, and I think he should be defended, and I understand because Bob probably loves his community. He's been here and he's been a staple, so I understand. And with that being said, I wanted to maybe clarify that what may be perceived as an attack is actually not anything to do with an attack on Bob or city employees. It's I kind of want to lay it out there, and the facts are, I'll call them facts, is that people have come forward saying that and I said, again, I wasn't going to bring this up, but since it was brought up, that people have come forward and they said that they received these bills that were not correct, and this is not just one person, this was multiple people have received, and I'm not even going to go back, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to say that it was happening, it's done, and I'm glad I brought it to attention because now it's not going to happen. Bob gave his word, and I believe him. So, but certainly it was never intended to be an attack on Bob or the water department. Unfortunately, that's kind of the brunt. Somebody gets the blame, but it's not them. It's somebody's doing something, but it's over with. Now, next, there was a little criticism about Facebook and myself, and you know, as I've said before, I'm not shy to put things on Facebook, and as we've seen in the past, political people, you know, all the way from some people don't use it very well, but some people do, and all the candidates are using it, and I'm not even going to compare myself to other people, but I do want to say that I do believe there are some benefits to Facebook, and that is that not everybody can attend council meetings. Some people have work, family obligations, they have maybe religious obligations, they have sports commitments, or maybe they just don't want to sit through a 3-hour meeting. And they're looking for some of those quick sound bites. And maybe it's not what everybody wants to hear, and I understand that. But I try to portray things as best as I can accurately without, and if it offends people, then so be it. Apparently it doesn't offend a lot of people because I get good feedback, but maybe not so much all the time, but I'll take both sides. So with that being said, I do think Facebook is popular, and with that being said, I will not stop posting on Facebook. I do also want to point out, as I was saying, not everybody attends the meetings. A lot of people don't know that not everybody has Channel 19, okay? Now you could say, well, tape the videos are on YouTube, but not everybody knows that. There's a lot of people that said, I never knew that it was on YouTube. I didn't even know that I could watch the tapes. So for a lot of people, that's how they're getting their news is from Facebook. Sad reality, but it's true. But I do want to go back, and I'm going to try to cut my comments short a little bit, but I do want to go back. Excuse me?
Let's go.
Okay, thank you. See, this is one of the things that maybe I'm criticized for, is that people in the room, TV, they don't understand that we're often interrupted. I try not to do it to other people, but it does happen. So It just happened again, but that's okay. I'll continue. Going back to what I was saying about the employees, I was not at the last meeting. Excuse me, it was last Monday, and I had some difficulties having a sitter. And I was reading through the minutes, and John, what I'm going to say next is not, I'm trying to be as diplomatic with everybody on council, but there was something that I think just struck a chord that I think rings true. And then it says here, John, that you sent a letter to every employee in the city apologizing for council's behavior because it's been embarrassing.
It said everybody in the letter also. It said it didn't call anybody out.
Okay.
It called us all out as a body.
So just with that being said, and I'll be brief, and I'm not trying to be confrontational. What I'm trying to say is that myself, I'm not embarrassed by my actions on council or what I said up here. We have some serious issues that we're dealing with, very serious issues. And I'm not trying to, I know. Okay. So, but we have some serious issues. I'm not even going to go into the whole list, but we have things that are misdemeanors that we're voting on, okay? So you can sugarcoat it any way you want, but it's not, it needs to be brought to light sometimes, and I'm not embarrassed. So instead of an apology, I'd like to end by offering a thank you. Thank you to all the city employees. Thank you to our contractors. I see Carmen back there. Thank you. Chief Collins, Chief Kennedy, Bob. Bob's not here, but Bob, Tim, I don't always give you all the credit, but thank you. Judy, everybody. If I'm missing somebody, I apologize. Dennis. And you know what, Carl, you're an honorary guy, so thank you. I appreciate it.
Santa Claus.
Yeah, there you go. So, and everybody listening, I want to say thank you. And with that, I will continue asking these tough questions. And I want to wish everybody a nice night. Thank you.
Normally we'd pass on to the next person, but I want to respond to that since you brought that up. I not only apologize for the body of the council, I also said thank you to everyone without expecting anything back. So that came from me based on comments from people that have been telling things to me. And I don't do things right all the time, but when I make a mistake, I'll admit it. And I felt as though that our city employees hear a lot of negative things sometimes. We all do. We all hear a lot of negative things in our jobs, and we'd like to hear more positive feedback when something's being done well. And I think due to the circumstances the last few years, and recently, there's been a lot of things called upon our employees to do a lot of different things, also extra jobs that they weren't expected to do. So the apology was there first, but it also was a big thank you. And the only reason why I'm saying that now is because I don't want that to get lost. I mean, it's not a grandstand, I really truly believe when people do something right, there should be acknowledged for it. If someone makes a mistake, you call them out, and we'll figure out a way to fix it, but there's ways to do that. And I don't feel as though that we've done a very good job professionally handling that, especially we got some pretty professional people up here that know better, including me. So, and and one more thing, I met with Superintendent Dolan from the township. We had a great conversation. We just met socially, didn't even know we were going to be in the same environment. We started talking. He was on the council years ago, Glenn, when we actually had a meeting with the township back then, and he said he thought, and I brought it up quite a while ago when Lanny was there. It's time to have another one, maybe, and just because we are kind of a region, to see where we're at. Nothing really on the agenda other than problems we're having and get a little acquainted a little bit. That's kind of what we did the first go around years ago, and I think it'd just be good for both communities to understand what we're into here with the growth that's taking place. And a lot of the people in the township that I know, listening to this or watching on YouTube or whatever as well, Facebook, a lot of you guys live in the township and you say you live in the city, and I'd love to be able to help you. And so think us getting an opportunity to talk to the township a little bit and voicing our concerns and they voice theirs and get a little relationship going that maybe has been lacking in the past, well, can do nothing but benefit this entire area. So with that, moving on.
Briefly, I will just echo Mary's comments. That's very well said, and drive carefully on Friday. Thank you.
I know everyone's going to be disappointed, but I have a work commitment out of state, and I will be missing our next meeting. I know I'll be disappointed. Thank you.
Maggie?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'd like to respond to John Hogan's comments also regarding the water bill matter. John, you've known me for a long time. I'm not changing for you. I'm not changing for anybody. And I'm not changing for anybody on this council. That's the bottom line. I'm an advocate. That's who I am. That's who I will always be. And I will never protect an employee, ever, or a department head that deliberately sends out false information to a taxpayer. It isn't going to happen on my watch. That's not why I was elected. So if you're looking for somebody to sweep things under the rug, vote for a different candidate. But that's not why I was elected. And as long as my facts were straight and right, that's all I really care about. Next, as to Plant Moran, I did have a talk with Plant Moran today. I am not going to discuss my conversation with Plant Moran, except that I find it highly unlikely that they have any other community where this activity has gone on. I think the business model that you are advocating for, to call somebody on the phone, is a business model that flies in the face of transparency of governmental services, which I support, I don't avoid. So I respect your position in possibly quietly handling this matter, but the silence is not anything that I will accept. Additionally, I've had an opportunity to speak with individuals in other communities regarding this matter. It has provided me with insight as to how to prevent this matter from happening again. And again, those were private conversations, and I was dismayed to hear what I heard from other communities as to what their reaction would have been should they have found out the same information. So that's my response to you. I'm not going to apologize to you. I didn't apologize to you back when you were on the chamber board, and I'm not going to do it now. So, as some of you know, March is Women's Month. It's a month where we honor women who have made contributions to the society in which we live. Tonight, I would like to thank and honor Melissa Taylor for coming forward on April 14th of 2015 and reporting the city's use of fraudulent water bills to get people's attention regarding outdated water meters. Her courage and her guts in bringing this to the city's attention has resulted in an obvious change in governmental practice. She has instilled in the city a renewed sense of moral character and importance of never breaching the public's trust. So to Melissa tonight, to that taxpayer who came to the microphone a year ago, your efforts are duly noted, and many, many, many people in the community, thank you. And last, I'd like to thank Chief Kennedy and Chief Collins for your steady hand in the blackout. I can't tell you the amount of people that I was in contact with over the weekend offering a place to stay if they needed it, that said they felt very safe, very comfortable in the city. They saw your patrol cars out. Chief, as you know, electricity was out, so smoke detectors were out. And I got to tell you, this community is in love with you, Chief. They knew that if anything happened, you would be there. So I just want to extend to you the greatest amount of gratitude for everything you've done in the past 4 or 5 days, and will continue to do in these disasters and blackouts. Thank you very much, and everyone have a great week. Thank you for inviting me into your home, and I'll see you at the next meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.